Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of art, it's the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson, coming to you from the 40 West Arts District here in Lakewood, Colorado. And joining me from his studio on the Road of Enchantment, my partner, my friend. He's South Dakota's favorite son. You know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, Wes Brown.
Oh my God, Todd, how you doing? Hey, I just seen Senator John Thune the other day, and he was saying that. I ran into him and his right-hand man, Kasai, and he said, "You're like South Dakota's favorite son." I'm like, yeah, but I was really born in California, so kind of throws it off. But
you spent the majority of your life in South Dakota, so I think that's
pretty
valid,
much from
right?
like probably like 4 onward. Yep. So.
And now you're a world famous podcaster. So
I am.
You got that. You got that on your resume. So it doesn't really matter. It's like where you are now, and then your state claims you.
Yeah.
The only thing that you're lacking is like an avenue or boulevard.
That's
somewhere
coming
in South Dakota. Yeah,
that's coming.
I think there should be Wes Brown Boulevard.
I think we should petition for that. Wes Brown Boulevard.
We talked about it before, but you got to do your part, man.
All right.
You'll be out there, walking the streets of Rapid City, glad handing people and, talking about your virtues.
That's right. Well, I got a street down in Denver named after me, Wesley Avenue. Look it up.
I think there's a lot of Wesley Avenues. I think you're gaslighting me. Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see
Always
you, my friend.
Fun to hang out with you for a few hours and talk art with a wonderful artist, which we have today. We're celebrating Month of Photography Denver for the month of March here on Tenet. And in doing so, we're bringing you a variety of interviews with a handful of photographers from Colorado and across the United States. Month of Photography Denver is a biennial festival that celebrates the photographic medium through public exhibitions, events, and programs at more than 75 museums, galleries, and other participating spaces across the Denver metro area. The dates for this year's festival are March 1st through the 30th. If you want to find out more information on Month of Photography, go to denvermop.org, denvermop.org. And in conjunction with Month of Photography, I'm doing some artist talks from my photography exhibit, Return of the Corn Mothers, currently on display at History Colorado. The next one takes place on Saturday, March 18th on the 4th floor of the museum from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. The talks are free and open to the public, but they are asking that you RSVP, and you can do that via the Chicano Humanities and Arts Council website, and that's chacgallery.org, CHAC gallery.org. All right. Super excited for today. Our guest this week is a photographer from Fargo, North Dakota. She creates exquisite portraits using the alternative photographic process of wet plate collodion to create photographs on both glass and metal. You can follow her on Instagram at Old School Collodion and find her website by clicking on the link in her bio there that will take you to her website, karyjanousek.zenfoliosite.com/home. That'll take you right to there. You can see her beautiful work. Kary, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, as I mentioned in the intro, you live in Fargo. Is that where you're originally from?
I am not. I was born on the Ohio River area. Then I lived in Florida near Naples and Bonita Springs. And then my family moved back to the Ohio River. So I was in Ohio until I lived all over Ohio until I was 21, 22. And then I moved to Fargo.
Did you actually live on the river?
Yeah, I could see West Virginia. I mean, you could throw a stone over. It was,
nice.
Yep.
On a houseboat on a river? No, I'm just
no,
kidding.
I mean, we were set back. Some people, they live smack up against the river though. Yeah, it's an old industrial town. A lot of history there too, actually. Yeah, it was a fun place to grow up because it was on the tail end of the Appalachian Mountains. It's beautiful to go during fall and a lot of nature. So hiking was a big thing, and yeah, it was nice.
So how did you get to Fargo?
Well, TMI, I ended a relationship. I was young and I had a best friend that lived in Fargo, one of my best friends. We actually met in Florida when I was a little girl, and she had her family members owned property up in the rural areas of Fargo, the area of Fargo. So they moved up there. So we would visit each other she would come to Ohio. I would so we were always in contact. We were pen pals. I'd write like 30-page letters. She'd write, because this is before cell phones for people who weren't rich. So yeah, we stayed close. And when my relationship ended, she said, come live with me. So I packed my backpack, jumped on a Greyhound, and moved here.
Wow, it sounds like a country western song. So how long you been in Fargo?
I have been here, oh my goodness, almost, it has to be at least 18 years.
Wow. Yeah, I spent, I told you kind of at the beginning, I spent 14 days in Fargo in January, and it was like 20 below the whole time I was there. So, and
yeah,
man, I don't miss those places because I grew up like 90 minutes south of you, and brutally cold can be. But
yeah, and I've never seen the movie. Everybody always asks me, and I've never seen the show. Yeah, but it is super cold. It's not as, from what I understand, the movie portrays it as really, I don't know, kind of small. It is small, but it's got some big areas, some city areas. So
Fargo's a nice town. I don't mind Fargo at all. And the misnomer is really the killer is from Fargo. The show takes place in Bemidji, Minnesota. So that's why the accent is so thick and fake, thick. But I have friends from North Dakota and Minnesota, and we do have some of those colloquialisms that you hear in the movie. But anyway, that's cool. I love the fact that you're from Fargo and that you've made it 18 winters. I think that's wonderful.
I had to stay. Yeah. I mean, it's a weird place, and I'm a quirky person. So it was a good fit so far.
Good deal. Good deal.
What makes Fargo weird?
You have to come visit.
And you say that in a charming manner, right? It's weird in a charming manner.
Please come visit. It is a night, I think, because it is very cold for so many months. People are introspective. Everyone is now after the pandemic anyway, but they've always been. And, when you think a lot, then usually we were talking about being a little crazy. You go a little bizarre. And there's a lot of, artistic people here. It's, it's a college town. It's got 3 colleges really close to each other. And so you have such a mixture. You got, and the old city people are way different than the new South Fargo people. And so when they mash up together, it's just unique. Yeah.
Well, it's always good when there's colleges and universities in a town, because that brings in culture. And that sounds like a really nice place. I've never been there myself. I'd love to come check it out sometime. And you're in it for the long haul. If you've been there for 18 years, yeah?
Yes. And now that I have my studio space, it's like my husband will say, hey, we're getting to the point where we should just move. And I'm like, I can't move now. I have my studio. I'm not leaving that space right now. I would be open to trying. I like adventure. I like going new places. But Fargo is definitely a nice place to live and interesting place.
And your studio looks like it's in an older building. How old is that building?
Well, if you want me to go on and on, that building, my first studio, if I may regress, my first studio space was in a antique schoolhouse, hence my name, Old School Collodion, and it was on the outskirts of Fargo. It was a nice place to do pandemic work because it was almost like a little getaway over there. So when I had to move out of that space, you have to have a building for me, because I mean, look up, if you can see, I'm not a neat person when it comes to creating. I don't know if it's so bright, but I have stains from the silver. And you don't want to be in a beautiful studio that a traditional photographer would be in, and unless you're extremely neat with your chemistry, because you'll destroy it. So I needed a space that would be kind of in the same vein as the antique schoolhouse, and also had abundant natural light because I don't use strobe flash. I use all natural lighting. That's how I was mentored, was in natural light. And so you need a place where the windows haven't been updated with modern windows, because the glass in modern windows has UV coating to protect furnishings and carpeting. So this building, I actually went to go see the landlord about a ground level unit. My budget needed to be small, and I thought I'm going to have to go to strobe flash at the time. And I thought I'd rather at least keep going and be downtown and have to be forced into strobe flash than not get to do it at all. So turns out he liked me so much. He's an artist and he's very quirky. That he said, "Why don't I show you the big space?" And so after I'd seen this horrible, disgusting ground level unit, he brought me to the top floor of the building. And the building it used to be a college. It was built in 1881, I believe. And it was a college until the 1970s. So my floor, the top floor there, has 19 9-foot windows. And it was the main classroom. And so it was like the dream studio. Like if you watched movies as a kid in the 80s and you saw these New York studios with the big windows and it's all open. And so I walked up there and that's what this looked like. And I was like, I don't care what it costs or what I have to do. This is going to be mine. And because he understands the messiness of what artists do, he wasn't real particular about me destroying one of his bathrooms into a dark room. So yeah, it's a beautiful building. It's full of artists. He rents spaces to artists. That was always his goal, to support the art community locally. And he was very choosy about who he would let in because he keeps it very affordable. So that was his family. And he wanted to decide who was going to be in his family. And yeah, I fit right in. It's fantastic.
Nice.
Now, in getting this space, there was a little bit of a caveat in order for you to seal the deal. So talk about what you had to do to make this happen.
Yeah. So when I went to see the space, I said, I want this space. He said, I don't have time to talk about the particulars, but I'm glad that you're serious and interested. He said, let's set up a second meeting time and we'll go over the particulars. So I thought I was pretty much getting the space. So when I showed up for that second viewing, there was another possible tenant brought in. And it was a young man who was like a DJ or something. So he was going to use it for a party space, I'm almost positive. And he was very charismatic, this young man. And I just was really nervous because he was schmoozing the landlord. And so we were kind of competing in front of, and the landlord loved it. We were like, well, I would do this and I would do that, you know? And so even at one point I'm like, well, I ran a business and I have online reviews. You can actually see how reliable I am. And so we're like kind of just duking it out. And finally we were talking about other things we do besides, you know, what I do besides photography. And he was saying what he did besides music. And I said, oh, well, I was trained in classical singing. And, you know, the space is super tall ceiling. It's 3,400 square feet. So the acoustics are phenomenal in there. And so the landlord like put me in the spot and he's like, well, I want to hear then. So I sang the opera song, O Mio, and the landlord actually started crying. He'd never heard someone sing that close in a classical way. And he's an artist and he's an emotional man. So that sealed it. He said, you got the space. So I beat him.
Such a great story. Can you give us a little taste of what you sang?
Well, I don't have the acoustics here though. It's Oh mio bambino caro, mi piace bello, quando rincontra rosa a comparar la I do sing that whole song twice through when I'm developing as well. So, and I'm sorry, rinsing the developer off. So it's a good little song to do to time that too. So yeah, I have a fondness for that little piece.
I love that that's part of your process, that you know the length of what it takes to do what you're doing in that song in the time that you can sing it finishes that process, right? That's cool.
Well, and I mean, I try to, yeah. I mean, it's sometimes if there's somebody in the studio that I don't know if they'll think I'm crazy, then I'm weird. I don't do it. But if it's my models and stuff, yeah, they've heard me sing. And it does work pretty well for the timing.
Nice. That's interesting.
Are you guys musical?
Well, I mean, love music, but
yeah, we're music fans, but I wouldn't describe myself necessarily as musical.
Well, this year also I'm learning guitar. Now I took lessons years ago. That's how I met my husband, and I gave up, of course. So now I decided I needed to have a new hobby that wasn't related to any kind of business. And so I'm terrible at it, but it's fun.
yeah.
So I don't think I'm gonna be any great guitar player, but it's nice to have things that aren't high pressure, that are artistic. And I also believe, I don't know if you feel this way, but if you go into different art forms, even if you're not good at it, then it helps you in your main art form. It gives you different perspective. You'll bring things you learn from it into what you're doing. And it'll create a more unique, I think it creates a more unique body of work, because you're looking at things from different angles then, you know?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, that's cool that you're pursuing this. Another creative outlet, like you said, that kind of gives you reprieve from your regular normal routine. And it just adds to your life, right?
It does. And, it's better than just puttering around on the internet. I still like to do that, but it's nice to do things that are not on the internet sometimes.
For sure.
Have you always been interested in history? And would you describe yourself as kind of an old soul?
Yes, for sure. I grew up watching old movies. My parents were very strict and we didn't watch regular television. So I would often watch nothing but old movies, but I liked it. And so the old movies then turn into me reading all the time, and I read constantly. And so historical books, I would read fiction and nonfiction, and it really helped me to, I think, have a curious mind, and so history was where I was drawn. Though I would read other things, but I always loved the past. And so everything that I've done in my life, I feel like anything I've taken an interest in seriously has been somehow related to old things or history in general. Just the way I gravitate. And I love reading about people from the past. I think that's why I like to do portraiture. Because to me, when I read about people, I don't feel like they're dead. I feel like there's, it's like, they don't feel dead to me. They were just like you and I, just different circumstances. And I feel closer connection to humanity in general, because it's neat to know that, there are people like us all throughout for hundreds of years.
Do you have a favorite time frame that you really gravitate towards?
There were things that I gravitated. Like for a while, I was really I get real, like many artistic people or people in general, I get real obsessive. And so, which isn't a bad thing, because then you can focus. But I got real obsessive with certain eras at certain times. So I was, as a teenager, very interested in World War II. I didn't understand evil, and I didn't understand how something like that could happen. So I got real obsessive, and I studied all about Hitler and the atrocities that happened and the whole late 30s, early 40s. And also there were a lot of good movies made around that time. So yeah, that was a stage. And then I got really obsessed with the Napoleon Bonaparte era French Revolution. And I went through a whole stage with that for several years. And so it just depends. I go through phases kind of. Yeah. And the Victorian era I've been interested in for a while because my previous business, my favorite hats to work on and restore, because I used to restore and repair antique millinery, were the Victorian hats because they were so well made. I can't believe that you can still wear them. It's crazy.
So how'd you get started in that? That's interesting.
Well, I had worked like retail and, all the kind of jobs that you start out doing in life if you didn't go to college. And I was an administrative office assistant. I worked in retail. I worked at a few artsy kind of places as a barista. And I just was tired of not knowing what to do with myself. So my husband let me have a year off from work and we just budgeted. And so I felt like I've got to figure out what I want to do. Didn't feel like going into kind of schooling or anything. So Etsy was a big thing. That's when the Etsy boom, the Etsy world started. And there weren't many vintage shops then. And so my best friend who had just graduated with her master's in architecture just wanted to make a little money on the side. And we were just talking and I said, why don't I open the shop, do most of the work. And then if you want to throw some things in, you can have the password and whatnot and, make a little extra money on the side. She didn't end up sticking with it at all. But when I started listing vintage clothing, I realized the hats were what we're selling. So, and it was easy because I didn't have to measure it and repair it. I did repair it later, but I didn't have to sew and all this at the time. So the clothing it was a lot more work. So then when I noticed all these hats flying out, so then I started looking for just hats. And then I would find really cute hats, but they needed repaired. And I started getting a bigger and bigger worldwide following. I promoted on social media and people were coming to me for hats. So I had to keep churning them out. And I could make my own at one point, but they wanted the vintage. And the antique. So I read old millinery books. I studied the pieces themselves. I really prided myself on never using glue. Not that there's anything wrong with using glue, but I decided not to use it. Everything was hand sewn, steam, shaping, and just kind of that's how it kind of just progressed. And it started becoming like a real business. It was a full-time working job for many years. And then, the pandemic happened. So.
Oh, that damn pandemic.
Yeah. And I had to do a lot of photography for that. I didn't have any training in photography, but that's kind of where it started. I started taking digital photos of my friends in vintage outfits with hats. And a couple local magazines, they saw me on social media and liked the photos, so they would put them in the magazine. And then I started getting tired of doing all of my friends' hair and makeup and having to drive places. So I started just taking my own head all the time. And that got old real quick. But it helped in two ways. It helped me understand the importance of angles. I saw myself from every angle you can imagine. And I also learned shadows, lighting, because I was trying to sell a product. So it did help with what I'm doing now.
That's really interesting. And I didn't even think about that. But yeah, having to photograph yourself and figuring out how you look the best and how to show off these hats, that makes total sense. And then, making sure that that you had the light that you needed so that people could correctly see it. So what a great education just by you, experimenting and seeing how this all works.
Yeah, I just used a Canon Rebel, and you see the Canon Rebel had the little screen you could reverse. A lot of bloggers used it in the early days. We had beautiful cell phones that make wonderful videos. And it was helpful because I could see myself on there. So then I knew, okay, that looks way better than that pose. Yeah, it does really hurt your self-esteem when you see yourself from every angle, there's no hiding. Photography is the truth teller, unless you're, post editing. And that was the other thing. I restrained myself from editing too many of my photos. I just used light because I couldn't stand the thought of vanity. Like, you're going to edit things off your face now? No, you're selling hats. Let's not get too crazy. Let's just use good lighting, good posing. Yeah. But I'm glad I do it once in a while still, but I'm glad that phase is over for the most part.
So talk about how this journey with this alternative photography process started. Like, what was the catalyst for all this?
It was, I think about how it started, and it's just like, I don't believe in fate or destiny or things like that. I don't know the limitations with energy and whatnot. I know a lot of things are just chance, but it was just crazy because I had been doing the hats, and I had seen in my social media an image of a young lady posed in a image of what played Collodion. And I was in love with it because it was historical and I'd never seen it before. And so I looked at the details of the image, and it said who the artist was. It was Shane Balkowicz, and he's in Bismarck. And so I remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool to dress all vintage like I do for my hat shop, and then have a big hat and get a professional shoot by an old photographer, the real deal. And so I contacted him and we set it up, and he's always booked way in advance. So I had to wait, but that gave me time, and I got this huge, elaborate 18th century costume together. And of course I had one of my hats. It was all custom made, and I go out there and I was so excited. Oh, I was so excited for that shoot. So when I went to his studio, he's got a beautiful natural light studio. It's got a skylight, just for his photography, just for his wet plate. And his darkroom is like, makes you drool. It's like huge. So he walks everyone through the process when you go in, because it's such a huge darkroom. And I sat for the first exposure, and he walked us in, my husband and I, to show how it was processed. And as he was just like moving his hands around and doing his thing, it like hit me like just that. I felt like, this is what I'm going to do next. This is the next thing I'm doing. And it was a time in my life where my volunteer work I did some volunteer work with the Nepali refugees, and it had come to an end. And then my singing, I had gotten my voice back in shape at the time, and I didn't want to do that really professionally or much. So I needed something else, and it was good timing. So I just decided in that moment, that's what I'm doing. So I didn't tell him that I wanted to do that because I didn't know him. I went home from the shoot, and he asked me if I'd come and model again for another costume shoot, since we worked well together. So I was scared to tell him I wanted to learn because I don't want to screw up the shoot, because it's an expensive process. He's going to do it for free, and I wanted to have fun and do it. So I went home. I ordered two manuals, the Osterman manual and the Quinn Jacobson manual. And I read them front to cover. I then bought a camera, and I started trying to figure out how to get chemistry. I started getting way over my head. I started feeling like sick with, how is this actually going to play out? How am I going to do this? And my husband said, you're being ridiculous. So I got the camera in the mail. It had pinholes all through the bellows, and I didn't know what that meant. I was just like, it's a broken camera. I can't believe I just wasted, $1,500. And so my husband said, we're not getting another camera until you talk to that guy and get his advice. So when we were talking about the shoot, he called me, the gentleman in Bismarck, and he was discussing the particulars about the next shoot. I just said, hey, by the way, I'm not trying to get you to do anything, but I need help picking on a camera. I've been studying the process, blah, blah, blah. He was floored. He was so shocked at the time, and he was just like, what? And he was very generous. Right away, he said, you know what? I have a camera. You come out here. I will mentor you. You can shadow me. You can come out to my shoots off and on. No problem. I'll show you where to get the chemicals. If you're doing this, I will help you. And so that's what happened. So he offered to teach me, and no cost, gave me my first camera. And
wow.
Yeah, he helped me troubleshoot throughout about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. He mentored me.
That's amazing.
That's really spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, and I really haven't, even though I'm a professional photographer, I have not experienced this. I know what, 10 types look like and ambrotypes, but I've never done it myself. Is it a pretty steep learning curve to kind of get this whole process down?
The process is simple. If you want me to kind of talk about the steps, I can.
Let's do that.
Yeah, would you please?
Yeah, so it's, you basically, the way I started was with glass, which is the harder way to start. And because that's what he uses, is glass. So I was learning from him. So you can do it on clear glass, but I had his cutoffs because he makes 8x10s. I was making 4x5s. So he would cut his own glass and send me the cutoffs. And he taught me to cut the glass. So you have to cut the glass by hand, and you have to file the edges. You have to clean it a special way. And then that is your plate. When you go into the dark room, it's a simple process. Once you have the chemistry, you coat the plate with collodion. It's a tacky substance. Once it kind of becomes jelly, like in the gel state, just takes a couple seconds. Then you put it into a silver nitrate bath, and then it stays in there for 3 minutes. That's what's going to make it receptive to light. And so at that point, you have to be in safe light conditions or red lights, in a dark room. And then you take the plate out after it's sensitized, you place it into a plate holder, and now you have your piece of film. It's a plate, it's not film, but you have your one thing that's going to be a photograph, one plate. So then you go out to the sitter, you focus them in and figure that out. And then I use natural light. So I have to calculate in my head what I think exposure time is going to be. And then I tell them to hold still. I put the lens cap on because I'm the shutter, basically. I load the plate into the camera, pull the slide, take the exposure. And then you just go back in immediately and you develop in hand. Once that negative pops up, you put it in a stop bath, rinse it, and then you fix it. And it's not complicated, really. The thing that makes it complicated is it's chemistry. And with me, I work in natural light, so it's a little more difficult in some aspects than strobe because you are dealing with the shifting of clouds and things like that. And the age of the chemistry makes a difference. And you can contaminate your silver bath. And so, these are the things that get you hung up. And getting good at it there's no rushing getting good at it. The only way you can really get good at wet plate is by doing it and doing it a lot. Some people who have professional training, unlike me, I didn't have professional photographic training. They're going to have a leg up with posing, composition. For me, it was very hard because I had to learn almost everything. So I had no idea. I'd never been in a dark room. I'd never learned film. I'd never learned any of that. But it's relatively easy. I would say the testing time comes, you're slamming out the plates when you first learn because the chemistry's all new, the equipment's all new. I would say within 6 months, you start running into some hairy situations. And that's when a lot of people quit. They also quit around the 3-year mark. I don't know why. It's weird. I think maybe they get sick of it. So, yeah, anybody can do it. It's not rocket science.
It is pretty labor intensive in the sense that you're mixing your chemicals and you're putting a silver nitrate on and, and all that. The thing that blows me away about the images I see of you. Well, let me ask you this. How long did it take you till you felt like you have mastered, in a loose term, like you were really comfortable, like you knew what you were doing? How long did it take you?
I had the benefit of the pandemic time to really get good. So for my lack of knowledge, I went pretty quick. And I would say I got really good when I started doing my 5x7s. I was pretty consistent at that point in the old studio. So I would say 2021. And I'd say 2020, I would have a good plate for every 5 garbage plates. So, but these are small, and I was also working sometimes with continuous UV because before I had a studio, I would be, especially during lockdown, I did self-portraits. My husband, I would do all the chemistry in my bathroom. I set up continuous UV lighting, spectrum lighting. And then I would pose and everything. And then he would just remove the lens cap for me. So that was like really good training, all of that. So by the time January 2021 rolled around, I was making pretty consistent plates. And it's so funny because I was so self-critical. I never felt good enough. And now I go back to that old work. And I know many people in photography and art forms do this. And it's just like, wow, I was really good. Like even by my standards now, I'm like, I didn't even know how good I was doing. Yeah. So it took me a year. I'm not particularly fast learner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an average learner,
sure.
But I'm a determined person. So if you're a very highly intelligent person that has some photographic training, it may take you only 6 months. I mean, it just depends on the individual.
And do you keep pretty copious notes about every image that you take? Because I know some collodion photographers, they have a book and they write down everything to the minute point. Do you keep records like that?
I keep date, subject's name,
okay,
title, and the number of the plate.
Yeah, I've seen them where they will track the temperature of the chemicals, how long they shot, how long it took to develop. Okay, mixtures, because they're always playing with mixtures. So.
Those are there's 2 types of collodionists. This is only my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's what we want to hear.
There's the type who do it for art, and then there's the type that are like kind of the chemistry gearheads, the technicians, I'll call them, and honestly, they help each other out. I feel like, I don't know how many times I've turned to one of the wet plate artists that don't really produce art. It's always art, but they wouldn't even, I don't think, say that they're artists, but they're so good at the technical stuff. But that being said, they can make it seem really intense and difficult. And it's not. Right. It is difficult. It's hard what we do, but it's not out of your reach. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes the way they do that, I feel like that gives the impression that it's like, whoa, it's right. Overwhelming to a normal person.
Right.
I'll give you an example of how easy it can be. It's not easy in the long run. I have challenges every week, but the general photography, and it's not impossible, anyone can do. I had an assistant, and she'd never poured a plate before in her life. And her first exposure was a success in my studio. And that happens all the time. So, she has the benefit of somebody by her side that knows what to do, helping her. But she wasn't trained in photography or anything, So, yeah, people take pride in knowing a lot of these technicalities, and good for them. And I've turned to them for help sometimes. But a lot of times they're wrong. I'm going to be straight up honest. This sounds really conceited, but just the other day I had an issue, and down the line in one of the Facebook groups, they just kept telling me what they thought it was, and I knew it wasn't that. I knew it wasn't that. But they're trying to be helpful. So I'm not judging, but I knew they were wrong, and that happens all the time. It's head knowledge. It's not field knowledge. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Most of the wet plate people they're shooting 3 plates a month at the most.
Oh, wow.
I'm shooting up to 10, 12 plates a week. And I've done that solid for almost 4 years. Yeah. So I may not be the smartest with the technical stuff, and I have a long way to go. But when it comes to troubleshooting in the field, I can usually figure it out.
That's the most important part right there.
Yeah. Experience counts, Every part of what you have laid out for us is an important piece, from learning how to pose yourself so that you can pose other people, seeing how people look good as far as the angles, the lighting, and then, being conscious of the light in your studio and how it changes throughout the day. You get a feel for that. You actually are working intuitively, right?
Yeah. And I will just say, as a caveat of what I said, because I don't want to sound like a snot, everybody learns differently. So that's a big component right there. These geniuses that know the technical stuff, that's how they learn. And I'm impressed, but that's not how I learn.
Right.
That's not how I got it. So everybody's different. I don't mean to sound like a brat, because I love my wet plate community. I mean, the people are so sweet. So no matter if they're more technical or more artsy,
Yeah,
they're very welcoming and sweet. So
you're not sounding like a brat at all. You're calling it like it is, and I appreciate that. So my next question is, I know you shoot 8x10 now too. Do you go bigger than that, or is 8x10 the biggest?
So my big behemoth camera, which needs repaired right now, I'm so sad. It's from the 1880s. It's a very old camera. I beat it to death. It goes up to 10x12s, and so I've done a series of 10x12s on blue stained glass. The local hotel in town here, the new one, the Jasper bought those, so I don't have them anymore. But I've done 10 types and ambrotypes in 10x12. That's a very big size compared to what they did in the Victorian era. But you'll find modern collodionists, especially men, I don't, they love the big plates. Well, I do too. I don't think so you'll see some guys that have made trucks into a camera. Yep. They've made these gigantic, I don't even know how they're sensitizing these things. That's thousands of dollars of silver. And it blows my mind, because 10x12 is difficult. My goal is, it's developing. You're going like this. I mean, if you do in-hand developing, what I would like to do is go up to a 14x14 camera. I would love to have a 14x14.
So is there
it's just impressive?
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And so my question is, my follow-up is, going from 5x7 to 8x10, was that a big jump, or is it just size?
It was. Yeah, it was. But in some ways, small plates can be challenging because they're small. Like the 4x5s, I haven't done a 4x5 in 2 years. I don't even know if I could do a good job. I probably manage, but I'd waste a lot of chemistry because I'm used to pouring, So in a way, 8x10s can be fairly easy. You just got to make sure that you're pouring enough collodion to cover the plate when you begin going up, because then you just get these sloppy edges with no collodion on them when they come back out of the silver bath and when you make your exposure. But I would say the developing was actually easier for me than the smaller plates, because you got a wider surface to move the developer on, and you can see the image pop up easier.
Okay.
Probably because I need to be wearing my glasses. But so when those 10 typists did those tiny, tiny plates, which most of them are very small, that took its own talent there. I don't know how they do them. So it is hard.
As somebody that has shot view cameras before, but film, is it a special holder for the glass plates that you use? How does that work? I'm just curious.
Well, for the most part, every camera I've bought that came with plate holders that worked for both tin and glass. So I never had experience with having a problem with that until I got this new camera. So my new camera is just an 8x10. It was Swarovski, I think is how you pronounce it, handmade camera. It's a modern handmade camera. It's mahogany. But it didn't come with plate holders, and I didn't want to wait for them to send me plate holders. It takes a long time. I wanted to use it right away. So I had a plate holder that someone had gifted me, and I tried using it with glass, and it was scraping the front every time. The emulsion was just getting scraped. It's because the 3mm was too thick. So my glass is 3mm thick. So you do need to be a little cognizant, aware of that, because if you want to do glass, which in my opinion, if you're doing an art form, I like the glass better. If you're just trying to make money at wet plate, tintypes are fine, and they're still good. I use them all the time, but the glass is classier for like art pieces,
When you can make
So
multiple prints from that single piece of glass, where on a tintype you can't make multiple plates unless you scan.
I do positive ambrotypes. So those are, I'll show you. I have one here. I know this is a podcast, but just so this is black stained glass, and you can see how thick. And that's just because my plates are big. If I can get thinner glass, but they'll bust easier because it's a large surface. If you want to make a negative, it's processed differently, it's exposed differently, and it's on clear glass. I've made one negative. I am not good at it, and it's a different art form. So I would like to down the road get better at making negatives. I have a friend, a gentleman who doesn't live too far. His name's Kevin. He's like a master collodion negative maker, and he's offered to help me learn. But then you can make those contact prints.
Yep. I've seen people on YouTube. There's a guy from I don't remember where he's from, Czechoslovakia or something. And he does the negative glass ambrotype. So
yeah, you might be thinking of Brute.
Could be. I haven't seen it in a while.
It's called Top Shit Photography.
That could be. Yeah, that might be him.
He's my friend. I've known Brute. We talk on the phone sometimes. And he is also a master at making negatives. He learned from Mark Osterman. And Mark Osterman is the guy who used to be in charge of the Eastman Museum?
Oh, okay.
In Rochester, New York, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows everything about photography, in these archaic forms of photography.
Well, Brew at one time was talking about doing a vehicle and doing large, inside a modified, I think it was like a military truck, like a truck, and he was going to convert it into a view camera.
Oh, that must not have been Brute, but I don't know. I've tried it. But there have been collodion artists that have done their trucks or vans into. Yep. It's pretty fascinating. Like I said, that just boggles my mind. And I love, like I said, I love huge plate. They're so impressive. I mean, with the small ones, you do get like a crispier contrast and sharpness. That's not a proper term. More sharpness. But I don't know. I just like a big plate. It looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go big or go home, right?
Yes. And galleries prefer big pieces of art. So if you want to go the art route, you don't have to, but it'd be nice to go big. Looks nice.
The process that we're talking about is, I know a lot of alternative processes, there's an element of toxicity to them. Is wet plate, collodion, do you have to be careful? Do you have to have any kind of special equipment in order to process these and work with the chemistry?
There's a lot of people get very paranoid about the chemistry with wet plate. And certainly there's some safety precautions you should always take, especially with the maintenance of your silver bath, because you can get, it's a dangerous chemical, but it's no more dangerous than, like my mentor used to say, like the bleach under your cover in the bathroom. Like, you don't want to freak out, but you should wear, I use one of those masks with repeated exposure. If I'm doing all day, 10 types for like a walk-in day, I use one of those, I forget what they're called, but they're the ones that the spray painting people use. I do that for the ether in the collodion and all that. And I hate the smell of the developer. The one chemical I don't like the smell of, I like the smell of all the other ones. And it kind of makes me queasy after a whole day. But it's also covering your eyes. So if you're doing work with silver, you should wear your eyeglasses or goggles. And then you should wear gloves. But you end up taking them on and off. There's nothing you can do about it. My hands are always stained. I haven't had any issues, but you should use precaution, like anything with chemicals,
Yeah, I wasn't really sure how toxic it was. So I definitely wanted to ask you that question. So you wear a respirator when you're doing
it's not a respirator. It's like there's a name for them, but they have like the filters on the side, and it's like a plastic mask. I get mine online on Amazon. It just protects from, you should wear it always. But I mean, in the moment, if I'm just doing 5 plates in one day and I'm not in this dark room stuck and I have ventilation there, sometimes I am bad and I forgo the mask. But you should always wear it. Especially if you have asthma. I don't even know if you can do this if you have asthma or some lung problems. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not. You shouldn't fear chemistry, right? You shouldn't fear chemicals. Just be smart.
Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit about the history of this process? Like kind of give our listeners a kind of a rundown of how this all came about and who was responsible?
Yeah, there's the Victorian era was a time where there was like a middle class finally. There wasn't just like super rich and people working from dawn to dusk. There certainly still were those people, but there was a large group of people who had some education and some free time. And so they were pushing technology in all areas forward. So there was a lot of curiosity about photography. The daguerreotype was already out there, but it was expensive and difficult. And I think you had to hold still for around 30 seconds, which is a really long time. And they needed a process that you could make contact prints from. That was lacking, And so they tried different ones. There was the calotype, and the quality sucked. And so then I think it was a French guy who was theorizing, why can't we use that chemical they use to seal wounds, collodion, to make the silver molecules and stick to the plate and make a different form of technology? Something along those lines, this French guy, I think he wrote. And an Englishman named Frederick Scott Archer read that. He's the man that put it together. So he put that idea and made it a workable process. And he was not a photographer. He was a relief artist. He used to make molds for like coins and awards. And he thought it'd be cool if he could invent an easier photographic process to take pictures of his work with relief molding. And he made a success of it. So when he made a success of this process, he very kindly didn't, no one had to pay to learn it. It was just freely published in I forget what it was published in. I'm being put on the spot, but anyone could do it. There was no fee. Like with the daguerreotype, you had to pay a fee to be able to do that. So because of that, I think it was like the 1860s. So it was invented in 1851 by Frederick Scott Archer. And by the 1860s, it became the most widely used form of photography because anybody could do it. And it was so much faster than the daguerreotype, easier. And it was very high quality. And ambrotypes, the ones on glass, they really only did those for that first 10 years, aside from negatives. Like the positive ambrotypes, they were only made during the first, they kind of lost popularity when the tin type, the ferrotype came out. And so that's where you see like the Civil War soldiers and all these different, you get these tins all over the place. It was just cheaper and easier than glass. It didn't get broke. So positive ambrotypes are a little harder to find. So it just kept on growing in popularity, and it kind of died off in 1880 because they started making the dry plate process. So that made it easier because then you could finally go into the mountains without buckets of water. My process it's wet, obviously. So you have to have water and it has to be all done at once. So they moved that technology forward in the 1880s. So it started dropping in popularity. But there are some reports that there were still wet plate artists taking tin types up until the late 1920s. So it was a beloved process.
And you have to work really quickly, right? Because the chemistry, the collodion will dry rapidly. Is that correct?
Well, you have it depends on the weather, where you're at, temperature,
humidity,
weather,
and all that.
Yeah, but average, you have. I mean, when you come out with your plate holder, you don't want to take longer than 8 to 10 minutes, in my opinion. Especially with tin types. I don't know what the difference is there. I'm not good with the reasons, but the edges will start to get a little dry. It doesn't ruin the plate, but you know, it's ideal. It's within 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, and get back to that dark room, develop it, fix it.
How long does your chemistry last? Like when you make, your silver nitrate, when you mix that up, how long does that last? Can you keep that a couple days, or is that a 1-day process?
The silver nitrate is a bath, and it stays forever. I mean,
Okay.
Silver is silver. So as long as you maintenance your bath and you put some more crystals, silver crystals in it from time to time, there's some measuring that takes place to make sure everything's in working order. It's the most finicky of the chemicals, in my opinion. It's the high maintenance chemical. And I'm really thinking that because I just went through a little adventure with my silver bath this last week. But yeah, that's the most expensive chemical, and you don't have to keep making it. You just maintain it. And by maintaining it, you have to sun it to get rid of impurities, artifacts. You have to, like I said, you put more silver in occasionally because you're stripping silver out every time you're making an image. And you occasionally have to boil it and then reconstitute it with some distilled water. And you have to measure the pH levels. And, it's a scientific process, but it's not real hard. It's not too complicated. I've never had much problem with my silver bath. I see people in the forums and in the Facebook groups always having silver problems, and I've been kind of spoiled. I've never had a problem until this last week. I had crazy things happening to my silver. I've had my successful shoot yesterday, and the silver is back in order.
Nice.
So, it happens. You can contaminate your bath. I contaminated my bath. I don't really know how I did it, but it needed to be completely redone, re-maintained. But I still have that bath.
And all these materials that you're using, are you able to source them locally, or do you have to order them from someplace? How does that work?
You have to order everything. Now, there are some modern conveniences now that it has a new popularity boom, the 10 types and the wet plates. And, the young people are very interested. Even within the time I've done it, I've seen it grow in popularity, especially during the pandemic. So because of that, there are two main businesses that provide pre-mixed chemistry. My suggestion is always study the chemistry and how to do it from scratch first. And then as you get the handle on everything, you don't necessarily have to make your chemicals from scratch, but at least understand what is going into them, how they're made, or else you won't be able to troubleshoot what's going on. So you can buy pre-mixed chemistry from two main source suppliers, Bostic and Sullivan, I'll give them a little plug, and UV Photographics. And I started out using Bostic's because that's what my mentor did. And I switched to UV just because there were some things. He ships faster, and I'm not really great at stockpiling. So, you find which company you like. I still buy some things from both of them. So you can get the raw chemistry or you can get the premix. It's up, whatever you want to do.
And I assume, because there's not a lot of suppliers of this, that it's a little pricey. Yeah or no?
Yes. So that is the one. I've had people say it's not really that expensive, but these people usually have money. It is expensive if you're doing it at my level of continuous work. If you're just doing it for a hobby off and on, I suppose it isn't that bad. But to get started, it's going to cost some money. Yeah, the silver's outrageous. I just bought a 100-gram, I think it is, container, and it was $250. And that's just for maintenance. That's not, you can't make a full bath of that. And I run through it really quickly because I'm stripping that bath all the time. So, it's expensive. And the glass, I use the hand poured stained glass. There's only one brand I like. There's other places that make stained glass. They're not good. Yeah, so that is super expensive. It comes from Mexico. The 10 types are cheaper, but they are pre-cut, and you have to pay like $1 per, I think it's 8x10. So it all adds up.
Yeah. So what would you say, just a rough guesstimate, would be your investment to get into doing this if you were just starting out?
Yeah, it depends on if you need a camera, I guess. And it depends on what lens you buy. I mean, there's always these variables, right? If you get a cheap Helmet, I think brand is camera, like I started on, and you get just a workhorse lens, like Fuji lens, 4.5, you can keep wide open. And you get some old adapted film holders that can fit plates. That's pretty cheap. That camera setup I'm talking about, with, a tripod that's decent, get one used, then you're probably looking at, I don't know, $400 or $500 with that setup. It's not that expensive, but there's a kit that Bostic and Sullivan sells. I don't know if UV sells a kit. It's called a starter kit. I would suggest doing that. I don't know if it's cheaper, but then you have everything you need, And I think that you have to go to their website to see how much it is, but it's probably about $400 at this point. So I would say at least $1,500 to get started. And I know other wet plate artists are probably going to think, if they hear this, no, you can do it cheaper. You can turn a Brownie camera into but but that's about what I paid to get started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that gives people an idea. And, if you're going to buy a halfway decent digital camera these days, well, body will cost you at least $1,500. So, a lot of times. So, obviously it's an investment. But it sounds like what you're talking about as far as like getting a starter pack and exploring that, and then use that as your jumping off point. That sounds like a good way to go for people that might want to experience it or check it out, and without, investing a ton of money into everything.
Yeah. And then the setup I'm talking about would be for natural light shoots, because you can't, those strobe lighting things are so expensive. So yeah, this would be like, if you're starting out, you're doing some still life on your porch, $1,500 will get you there. You're going to need a red light bulb to stick in a closet or wherever you're going to make a dark room. And you'll need some trays. But honestly, when I was desperate for trays, because I forgot them one time, I went to Walmart in like the little dollar area, and I just got these tubs, So, you can find ways around the professional stuff. It's a messy process, so it's all going to get destroyed. It's all going to get stained. So yeah, you're just going to try and get your hands on it. You're curious about it, and you can still shoot people in natural light. I always, in case somebody is listening to this, is interested, you can't, if you're working in natural light, you can't afford a head brace. You get yourself a chair with armrests and a high back. Tell those people to scooch back. Then you can get started without people being blurry all the time. Yeah.
Do you have multiple lenses for your cameras?
I do now. So I learned on a Carl Zeiss Tessar lens. That's what my teacher, or the gentleman who taught me, uses. And I like that. It's a good workhorse lens. I also have a Petzval from 1910 era that a local photographer gave me to use. And then I have a Magic Lantern lens. That's it's not a great lens, but I do have it. And then I have a couple brass lenses, and they all have different characteristics. I always gravitate back to that Carl Zeiss because it's just easy to use. The Petzval, it's a certain kind of lens where there's only a sweet spot of focus. So everything is a fall off. My lenses are wide open. So depth of field is super shallow. And yeah, so it's a little more limiting. It's like portraits like this, So it'd be interesting. I've never shot with it outdoors yet, my big gigantic Petzval, but I'm planning on working more with it. I just don't have much knowledge of that lens yet. So my friend Guy Bellingham, he's an amazing, talented wet plate artist in Bristol, I think it is. He knows everything about lenses, so he's promised to help me get used to the Petzval and really dial it in. So that'll be useful because it's nice to have different looks. Absolutely.
And you talked about the softness of certain lenses, and that's why when you look at some of these portraits, whether they're made in the modern age or 100 years ago, that's why you get a little bit of that softness, that fall off that you were talking about as far as the sharpness is concerned, and the fact that you're dealing with these long exposures if you're not using strobe to freeze people. If you're talking your natural light, like what you operate with most times, long exposures, it's hard to sit still for, multiple seconds, right? So that's why
Yeah.
you get a little bit of, you're going to get a little bit of movement. So you got shallow depth of field that you're working with, and then you got the time factor of trying to just sit still long enough. You're subject to sit still long enough so you can kind of retain as much sharpness as possible.
Yeah. And no one should feel bad if they move, because so many people taking my portrait. I've done my own self-portraits so many times with my husband. As I said, I still do those all the time. I do another one Sunday. And I'm one of the worst people. I have a head brace, and sometimes I'm still moving. I don't know how I managed to do it. So nobody should be beat up if they've moved. It's always disappointing when you come back from the dark room, you have a beautiful image and there's some softness because they moved. But it's not the end of the world. I find it's the most irritating in an image if it's a close-up. But if it's a scene pulled back, I mean, a lot of the images from that era, people moved. And it's part of the uniqueness of the process. So it's not the end of the world. No one should feel bad about it.
I'm glad you spoke to that. And yeah, I mean, that's what makes these unique, right?
Yeah. I say this, but I'm kind of a hypocrite. We're so self-critical in the moment. Even people will say they love the analog process, and I don't have one with me right now, but some of my plates will have some signs of the analog process around the edges, and it's very common. And people like that when they come in, but I hate it. I want a clean plate. Yeah, I'll show you actually. You'll see here. So this had signs of that analog process. I mean, I know your listeners can't see this, but I'm showing a plate that it's a square. And the reason why it's a square is because I cut off those edges. I couldn't take it.
That's funny, because I think that's what makes collodion photography so interesting, is that, like, when my friend took my the tintypes, I love them because there's silver nitrate burning off to the side, so you get that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's the correct term, but that's what it burns off, and it gives you kind of the streak sometimes. And then I love the edges that are not full, like you said. Yeah. So I was to say, I totally understand. And the people who come into my walk-in days, they know they're going to get one of those plates because I'm slamming them out. And they love it. So here's a clean plate. I mean, clean plates to me, I can't get away from it. I see what you're saying. And I've had some amazing artists within the wet plate community tell me that they deliberately don't wipe their plate holder out so that they can get more artifacts and more signs of the analog process to add to the art image. And in a way, I feel like if you're purposefully doing it, it is an artistic decision. And I get why people love that. But I like a clean plate. And I was going to say earlier, when I went down this other road, one of the things that blows me away is how clean your plates are. Because your images that I've seen on your Instagram are almost perfect. I mean, they're so clean. I was blown away by that.
Oh, thank you. That does my heart good. Well, you don't see the ones that aren't clean.
Let's just be real, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, if I have a plate I really like, and I can't get rid of those because it's harder to cut 10. If it's on 10, and it's an art piece or a piece I want framed, I'll mat that guy. I'll mat him up because I don't want.
That's funny.
I don't want to see that sloppy. But there are occasionally. So I had an idea. You guys can tell me what you think. I had an idea about doing this art show for the college down the road if they accept my proposal. I'd like to, because when you're doing an art show for college students, if you only present perfect images or images that look really good, clean, they're not going to get how much work that took, So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do like a series of 10 perfect images, right? And then have maybe another 15, 20 with all these chemical issues, just showing the different things that can go wrong. There's so many things, and do it, but make sure they're artistic looking too, so that they're pretty to look at, but you can see what will happen if your end result is always trying to be perfect. But these things happen, and that's okay. I will say the process has helped acceptance of, hey, you can't control things not being perfect in your art. That is for sure. So I think that would be a good idea, though. I'm still debating it because I have hung on to some disasters I made, and because they looked so interesting, and I would like to have a reason that I hung on to these. And then also I have things I experimented with during the pandemic that were disasters that I've hung on to. I'd like to also have those displayed because it's just interesting. What do you guys think?
I think
that's a fantastic idea, because I think it'll give people more of an appreciation, no matter if you're a photographer or not, just the regular viewer, to be able to witness like the various things that can happen, what a perfect plate looks like. And then, do artist talks around them where you talk about like, hey, this is what was going on in this particular piece. This is what I would consider a disaster. It didn't go as planned, but there's going to be somebody that probably likes it too. Like some of those pieces that aren't perfect, like Wes likes the scene that, the imperfections and stuff. And, that's what makes, I think that's what makes things beautiful in this world and in art. It's not the perfections that we notice. It's the imperfections. It's the anomalies that you go, wow, like that person's really beautiful. And it may be, I don't know, it may be a birthmark, or it may be,
I
just something
read
unique.
Something about this. Yes. Yeah. I just read something about that. And they said the exact thing that you're saying now. And it may have been a podcast or something I heard, but it's like, who's to say that you're noticing the beauty in someone, or if it's the imperfections that drew you, their particular imperfections, set of imperfections that drew you to them. Because oftentimes, if we relate to someone, it's usually their faults we relate to. It's like, oh, they're like me, So I don't know. It's a theory, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, I do think, and I will say this, I say perfect plates, but there's no perfect plate, obviously. And all wet plate artists say that. So, because it is a handmade product. Unless you're Mark Osterman, because he knows how to do everything technically correct. He is a genius.
But I think that's where, like the digital stuff, we can correct everything that everybody is pushing for perfection. And I've, since the pandemic, I've been looking at the, I guess the more alternate types of photography. And I like the imperfections of things. I think there's something about that. So.
Yeah, well, I will say I'm trying to open my mind to it because I've had so many comments about it. So I had my shoot yesterday. I had a very beautiful image of a young man who came in. He's a artist as well. And it had the silver splashes on the edges from where the holder, splashed the silver onto the edges of the plate after exposure. And because it's a wet process, so that's very common. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to go with it. He loved it that way. I have a chemical called Farmer's Reducer. I'm telling you a little secret why I have such clean plates. Farmer's Reducer will take anything off the black areas. You have to be very careful with it. You can erase your image. I've erased the top of a woman's head before, but it does clean up anything you want to clean up. So in a case of this, like this young man's portrait I took yesterday, I could have created a vignette and erased those splashes. No one would have known. I did not. So I am proud of myself, and that's going in my art shelf. So
I like me a good vignette too. That's another thing that photographers are driven crazy by, but I do like a good vignette.
Yes. Oh, well, it's part of the old way of doing things, right?
Yeah.
So much modernism in photography. Some of the old traditional things like that, people, they're sick of it.
Yeah.
But it's been long enough. We can keep doing that.
Hey, I'm going to bring up an image real quick here and talk about it. You showed us the one image with black stained glass, but this is actually with blue stained glass, it looks like. Is that true?
That one, I do blue stained glass and it looks just like that. But this one is a contact print I made off of it's a cyanotype.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
This is a funny story. So my friend Kevin taught me how to do cyanotype contact prints. And this is an image I took of my friend behind the scenes of a wet plate shoot. And I had my friend in Minot, who does wet plate, turn that digital behind the scenes shot into a negative, a modern negative. And I used the modern negative to create my cyanotype because I didn't have a wet plate negative of this image. And I loved it and I wanted it in blue. This is before I even thought about doing blue glass. And I just thought, I'd love to have that in blue. This is the only cyanotype I've ever made.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's really good.
So
It's a beautiful image. I love the posing. I love everything about it.
Yeah, that's my friend's daughter. Her name's Jillian. She's modeled for me. She modeled for me at one of my blue stained glass plates. Yeah, she did a great job there too. But they look very similar on the scan.
Yeah, let me bring up one of those and we'll talk about it real quick here.
While you're looking for that image, I want to ask a question. What is a modern negative? I think that's what you called it, to do the cyanotypes. What's that? Do you know the process that he's doing to do that?
No idea. And I think I think he had a master who came. So he's an art professor. He doesn't just do wet plate. He's an art professor at Minot. And I think that's his title, official title. And he had a lady come in. This was several years ago now. But he had a lady come in because they had visiting artists. And she, I believe, is a master at making negatives for cyanotypes. She was probably teaching the students cyanotypes. I'm not sure. I don't remember. And so he even felt nervous to make, which I'm sure he'd have done a good job, but he was wanting her process of how to make those negatives so that it would turn out well for me. Mm-hmm. And so he had her program somehow already preset into whatever computer he uses to make negatives. And he made that negative for me. So I don't know any of that stuff. That's just beyond me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was cool. I was just curious. So
this piece is on colored stained glass, blue stained glass, right?
Yes. And what I do to scan these, because I later learned that blue glass was, some wet plate artists in the Victorian era used blue glass. They used blue and red. I knew they used red. They were called ruby ambrotypes, or ruby glass. But I didn't know they used blue. I thought, oh, look at me, I'm clever. Anyway, what I do to scan these, because other wet plate artists have started to use colored glass more now since I have, if they're listening, you need to back those images. See, it's semi-translucent. Do you see there?
Yeah.
So when you scan them, the light will just go right over it. It's not the right color then when you get the scan. So to scan these properly, you have to back them with foil paper, foil craft paper, smooth foil craft paper that's the exact same color as the stained glass. And it will give you the perfect representation of your wet plate. And that is actually what I use to frame these. So when I frame these, I back them with that smooth foil craft paper. And so then it's solid blue. Because if I backed that with black, you lose the brightness of the blue,
Yeah, that fantastic blue color would go away. It wouldn't be quite as vibrant, right?
Yeah, and you can see here. So see how clean this plate is. This is a 10 by 12. This is my biggest image I can do. And you'll see how clean those edges are. And that is probably because I used Farmer's Reducer. I can't remember because these pieces of glass are expensive. And they were going into that front window of the hotel. And I didn't want to have those distracting silver splashes for these particular images. It's a very contemporary hotel with some vintage flair. And yeah, so I made sure all these plates were super clean. Oh, and another tip I'll give people if they're using blue glass, because I've worked that out of my system, I can let my tips go. The blue glass, if you want to shoot and really make these images pop, you use a black background always, and you dress the figure in light colors. If you're going to use a lighter colored backdrop, it's just not going to make the same visual impact at all.
That's a really interesting tip. I didn't even think about any of that. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So these images were supposed to represent my community. This was representing art. So I had art, agriculture, education, and music.
And you've done a number of series, right, in this kind of vein?
I've done a new series for every single art show I've had. So I've done 6 art shows, and every single art show had at least half of it was original, like new work. Because I'm showing this is a small community as far as even within the state. So I want them to have something unique to have people come out and see, not just the same images. And I'm always working anyway. So it gives me motivation to do something if I have a theme or a type of work I'm trying to do. As an artist, you need to stay motivated. I'm a motivated person, but even if you get creator's block or whatever, if you have a theme and you're still just kind of not feeling it, go ahead and keep to your theme, keep making work, so it helps. It's like the guide rails. Right now I have a theme I'm working on. It's so general that I was struggling a little. So the theme this gallery wanted was faces. And I'm like, well, that could go all over the place. So I decided to translate that in my brain as forms of traditional portraiture. So these are going to be very traditional. No double exposures, no crazy colors, no colored plates, just traditional portraits. And really, it's good practice for me to hone in on maybe not experimenting, but just getting the classic things down.
I love that. And we hear this time and time again as far as when we're talking about people with creative blocks or just in general, like the most important thing is just doing the work. Like you want to get better, you want to get to into the next series or whatever it is that might be like kind of hanging you up. It's really about just going and doing the work and working through it, right?
Yes. And I'm going to plug a book. You guys probably already know it. I didn't know about this book till January of this year. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called Art and Fear. That light is so bright. It's called Art and Fear, and it's by David, I think it's Bales and Ted Orland. And that book is amazing for no matter what kind of artist you are. Art and Fear. They are re-releasing it. So I bought this in January, fell in love with this book. I read it in one day. And I was taking notes. I was like, this is what I need to hear right now. And I just loved it. And then right after I read it, they re-released it with a foreword by Sally Mann and a new cover. And now it's going to be available in England. So in the UK area. So it is, I guess it's a little known secret. Like a lot of artists have read it. I didn't know about it. This was my first time reading it through, and it is giving tips like that. And one of the things that was said in that book and along that vein was you don't need to put the pressure on yourself that every art piece you're making has to be great art. If you're working on a theme, you're pushing that ahead, you may not make great things for a while, but it's going to get you to the place where you're making the great thing. So just look long term, which I think if you're an impatient person who's an artist like myself, that can be lost. So, just a reminder, look long term. We're not painting the Mona Lisa every time we're doing our art. So yeah, it's a great book. It's fantastic.
I've never heard of that book. Wes, have you heard of that book?
Nope, but it's on my list now. I'm going to order it. And you can get a used one for like $3.90. So it's not like a bank buster.
There you go.
You're like Johnny on the spot, man.
I am.
I'm going to pull up another portrait I want to talk about. And I guess this is your landlord?
Oh yes, that's the last image that was taken of him too, because he's not feeling well, so
Oh
he's not on
no.
site anymore.
I
Yeah,
love this portrait. It is so powerful and it has so much emotion. And I want to know who this guy is. And I think that
yeah.
was to me like what differentiates an interesting portrait when you're kind of just sucked in and you're like, I want to really know who this person is and what they're about.
He was fascinating, and I want to go off on a little story just to kind of help you understand what he is. Um, he worked for the college. He did helped back when architectural students only did drafting, like drawing by hand. He taught that class. I mean, he taught those classes. He traveled the world. He was in the Middle East designing buildings. He had this crazy, amazing life. And oh yeah, he's loaded. I mean, he's the sole inheritor of whatever his family's empire was, but you would never know it. And the thing is this is what helps you understand the type of person he was. He was offered right before he got ill. He was offered an opportunity to have a film made about his family and all that they accomplished, and a documentary by a guy who's done documentaries before. And this guy was going to come in, film, his name's Lee, film Lee, honor him, honor his family. But Lee was so modest. He was like, I'm thinking about it for the sake of my family, because they worked so hard to do what they did. But he goes, and my husband was with me in the hallway. He's like, but it's just not me. And he says, honestly, I'm not feeling very well. And if I can't complete the project for them, I'd feel really bad. And he just said, so I'm going to decline. And I just thought, if somebody offered to make a video about me, I'd say, yeah, go ahead. Let's make that video. And I haven't even done anything. So yeah, he was just a really realistic person too. Yeah. He had a good handle on what he could accomplish, I think. And that's a rare quality.
Yeah. And for the people that's looking for this, it's called Silent Girder.
And it's a 10 type.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, the day he came there he observed me at work when he used to be there all the time. And I had the visitor from South Dakota, actually, the 10 typist, or the wet plate artist from South Dakota coming in, the older gentleman who does the churches. And he wanted to kind of see the visitor and hang out. And I had other people coming in too that day. And I always let him, I had an open door policy, obviously, for him. He could come anytime he wanted. And so I don't know if my friend was running late, the guy from South Dakota, or if I was just set up early, but I said, hey, Lee, let's test the exposure. So I'm ready for this guy. And so Lee came over in his hat and he sat down, and that was my test exposure.
What a great story.
Yeah.
And, from the story that you told us about the whole documentary thing, it was a great premise to get him to sit for you, right? Like, hey, I have the subject coming in. I need to test my exposure. And he got him to sit for you. Because do you think he would have sat for you otherwise?
No,
Or yeah, so
I offered it to him before. There was one thing about his personality that those who know him know this, so I'm not insulting him. It's just part of his personality. But he kind of, he kept his distance emotionally to some extent. It was an odd juxtaposition, because sometimes he was so affectionate and giving of his, I don't know, experience and time. And then sometimes he kind of pull back, you know what I'm saying? So, and we're all like that, I guess, to some extent. So yeah, I had offered before, but he wouldn't give me an answer. But he was so excited about this 10 type that we took. And it was just a 5x7, because it was just a quick test exposure. And he loved having that. And he showed it to everybody, they told me later, and that he was so excited to have that. So it made me feel really good, because it wasn't long after that he was hospitalized for some health reasons. And yeah, now he's doesn't have I don't think he has the energy or ability to do as he did. So he's not on site anymore, but he's taken care of, and we miss him.
That's a great shot. I like that.
yeah. And that's the highest compliment as a portrait photographer, when your subject is so excited about their portrait, you know?
Yes.
Even in this day and age, with cell phones and the selfie thing and whatever else, there's tons of photos that get taken all the time. But what you're doing is incredibly important and unique, because at the end, there's something physical that lives in the world. It's not zeros and ones that are, cached on a phone or on a hard drive somewhere, or a computer, whatever. This is a physical thing that you can show people. It's not, it can't be, it could be lost, it could be destroyed. But if your hard drive gets corrupted or something else happens, poof, it's gone. This is something you hold in your hand and you can hand to somebody and have an experience. You're engaging physically with it.
Yeah. And there's, scans are pretty good, but the physical plate is always going to look a little different than the scan. It's just the nature of what it is. Kind of like a photograph of you is going to look different than you in person. So having that physical object that represents you, it helps you kind of see yourself. Also because of the way wet plate is, it only sees the UV spectrum. It translates color differently. It's monochrome. I mean, people aren't used to these things, seeing themselves in that kind of thing. And it's not airbrush. There's not much editing that can be done at all with the physical piece. So it can help some people accept who they are. I think there's a series of one artist did, his name's Simon, and he did a mental health series relating to that, depression, and I think PTSD. And then there was another, I don't know if it was the same guy or not, did one with people who had burn scars, real important work. And I imagine that was pretty therapeutic for them to see themselves in that state, no editing on that plate coming back at them, Unfortunately, it can be unsettling to some people if they haven't seen an unedited, honest photo of themselves in a while. And so you said the greatest compliment is when somebody's happy with a portrait. One of the most disappointing things is if someone gets a portrait, and even though to me it looks great, whatever's inside of them it's upset them. So, it's an interesting thing to learn about as you do this process, because you see, oh, okay, this person feels that they don't look well enough this way or whatever, and it shows you how photography and how it's changed has shaped what we expect ourselves to be, So it's been kind of interesting. I've had some people who have been pretty self-critical of their plates. All you can do is help them see the positive parts about it.
That's it. Vanity is a weird animal.
Yeah. Well, I've been vain many times, but here's the thing I've learned. Definitely, this has taught me never to complain about an ugly plate. Now, I don't have to put it everywhere, but I've had some pretty unflattering plates of myself taken. I've also had a lot of people shooting behind the scenes and reposting while I'm in action. And as a woman, we're judged physically so often, and it's like these images are usually not flattering. And I've just had to get over it. And I am always evolving and hopefully getting better. But one thing I've learned, it's like, that was you in that moment. So just deal with it. Be happy about it. That was you. You're working hard.
That is a hard obstacle to overcome, no matter what it is. Wes and I have this conversation a lot, even in the podcast. Our podcast is edited, so sometimes we clean up some of those things that we probably could just let roll, but we're self-conscious at the same time. So it happens in all facets of our society these days, I think.
Yeah. We always want to make a good impression. I mean, I never look down on anyone, because I've been very upset on occasion, especially when I was younger, when photos were posted that my permission that I found borderline offensive. Like, why are you posting that? That's a bad photo. So in things I've said, I wouldn't want somebody to repeat sometimes. So we always want to make a good impression. There's a balance there. And certainly we want to highlight the good things in our life. But yeah, when it affects, I love this process so much. So when I see somebody feeling bad about something that I'm proud about and think they look nice in, it's a different kind of, it's taught me something different. I'm not sure exactly what it is yet. I can't put my finger on what it's taught me, but it makes me a little sad, but that's just the way it is. I mean, that's how it is.
So have you ever had anybody like you've gone through this whole process, they don't like the image of themselves and they just don't take it? Or have you been able to navigate that?
I keep their image for a year and then I have to throw it unless it's an image I really like. I don't have the space or the desire to keep someone's portrait that maybe they don't really like. Maybe it should be just destroyed. And I hate to say that, but I'm not going to keep it around. So I've had many women and even a couple men that have commissioned portraits, not been happy, not because of what I did, just how they saw themselves. And yeah, I have a couple of them sitting in my studio right now that I kept because they were in full costume and I thought they were fantastic. But mostly, yeah, I keep them I give them a year and then, yeah, I throw them. I'm not going to keep somebody's portrait that they're not happy with.
Yeah.
It almost seems wrong, to keep. It's like, no, you're going to like this and I'm going to keep it.
And I'm going to post it on my Instagram just because you don't like it.
Post that.
Well, I'm kind of one of those. I used to love my photo taken a lot when I was younger and more in shape. As I've aged, not so much. Even although I did take them and I do keep them and I do have them displayed. The tintypes that I have of myself sometimes are hard to look at because I look so old. They
do age you.
Yeah.
They do. And I mean, because it is, once again, monochrome processes are unforgiving. If strobe or natural light, I mean, some people say natural light's more kind, but I don't know about that. Yeah. It's just a different look, but definitely it does. It can age you. But once in a blue moon, I will have a woman come in who is older than what she looks on the plate. To me, like that, she must be ecstatic with this, or a man. But mostly men, when it ages men, though, it gives them a gruffiness, like an earthiness. It flatters that. I like that. Of course, with women, we like being soft and things, and smooth. But once in a while, I think it's the skin tones. Sometimes if someone has their skin tone, their under skin tone, it's like, wow, just like any kind of wrinkle or anything just vanished. I'm like, why can't my wet plates turn out that way? Yeah. And I will say the continuous UV. I used to do all my self-portraits in continuous UV out of vanity somewhat because you can control the light more and you can put it closer, you could wash things out if you want. Right. So a lot of my earlier self-portraits I did with my husband, they're not nudes. They look like they're nudes. They're not. I have clothing on, but I didn't mind washing out some areas with a little extra light. It's light painting. It's part of the art.
That's right. That's right.
That's it. It's interesting how different people photograph, like you expressed with this particular process. Some people, it just gives them this ethereal quality to their skin and everything that's going on. And yes, I love that.
I do too. There's some people that are just made to be in wet plate, and they don't have to be the most beautiful or the most handsome, but they have something. They have something. And I've gotten, Julia Margaret Cameron, the most famous, arguably besides, some more modern wet plate artists, arguably one of the most famous female wet plate artists. She was from the Victorian era, and she would pick certain people. She'd pick certain people in certain age groups, and it worked well for her. There's something to that. It lends to a certain type of person, that is for sure. And I've had some very beautiful and handsome people come in, and it really didn't flatter them. I could tell it wasn't a flattering process for them. So I wouldn't, pursue them coming back as a model. It's not that they aren't amazing looking in person, but yeah, there's something, maybe it's that thing you were talking about with like the imperfections. Certain imperfections really shine in wet plate.
Some people just have like this timeless quality to the way that they look, I feel like. In doing this the last 4 years, can you pick out people that you think would really photograph well utilizing this process? Do you see it?
I have people, so I have girls, and people are drawn to this process who like history, and sometimes a lot of the artsy people like this. And young people who enjoy this process are more on the interesting artsy types side for the most part, not always. So I have people come in my walk-in days, and sometimes I'm like, please come back. Please, would you be interested in modeling? And that happened not long ago. And so she came back in for a model shoot. But I usually can tell. And once in a while I'm shocked. But sometimes, I mean, even someone who considers themselves just a mom that doesn't really take the time to, made up all the time. I had this one commission, and she was a beautiful woman, but she wasn't a high maintenance woman. She didn't do a lot of work, like fixing the hair and all this, but she looked stunning on every image. And we work together every year. So she comes in, and I love to have her. I mean, she has the look, she has the thing. I don't know what it is. She does though.
Going back to the fact that sometimes people don't like their images and you end up disposing of them after a year. Do you ever think about the fact that you're actually documenting your community, and that some of these people, like we'll say 100 years in the future, that might be the most important portrait that they've ever had made? Do you ever think about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I try to schmooze them so they come pick up the plate. I want them to come get it. I want them to appreciate what it is because I love it so much. So yeah, I'll send them emails. I'll tell them how I loved the shoot. I enjoyed connecting with them, how these images are, super high resolution compared to any photo they'll get. And that, it's a historical process. Their grandkids might want it down the road. But yeah, you can't convince people sometimes. But I do think of that all the time. Definitely. I hope some of my plates last. I hope they're out there surviving at some point.
I think they will. It'd almost be nice if you could find a place that would, some of these portraits that you're not going to use, they're not going to be sellable, but maybe that person is really important in the community. And it'd be great if you could like somehow donate them to some place that would keep them, whether it's a local historical society, museum, or what have you, that would be willing to take that into their archives,
Right. I have done that with one project. So my first major project I got grant funding for was for the Cass County Historical Society. And it was my goal. And before I even poured one plate, just when I knew I was going to do this process, when I came home from that photo shoot and I knew I was going to learn, I had written in a diary. I still have the entry, not diary, a journal. And I said, I know what I'm going to do. One of my goals is I'm going to take a portrait of the 684 historical locomotive. I love trains. And I knew very few people take pictures or wet plates of trains. They're hard to get. Yeah, here we go. And so pandemic happened. I did meet with the staff there. I think I said in that post, I cold called the staff. The lady was super sweet to me. I tried to initiate a relationship there. And I'd only made at that point like 15 to 20 plates. And she was on board with me being a part of something with them. So then I finally got the permission and got the project underway kind of after that year of pandemic in 2020. So I think it was like February is when I began. No, I'm sorry. It was in spring, March, April. I began taking wet plates of their historical buildings that they have in a little place called Bonanzaville. It's an old village of actual historical homes. And so I would go the staff would dress up and I would pose them beside these homes. And that was my series. And the finale was I was going to take 3 plates of that historical locomotive before it went into storage because it needs to be restored. So I got to do that. And this was my last shoot the day I took with that project. And the gentleman who's posing as Buster Keaton on the front of that locomotive is my childhood friend who reconnected with me during the pandemic and flew himself out from Tennessee to Fargo to pose for this plate. He was only in town for 3 days, and I was going through a really hard time. A person who was really close to me, a dear friend, had stopped speaking to me and ended the friendship. And so I was going through a really hard time. And when he did this, it was such a gesture of kindness to me. And then this plate came out. And when I saw this plate come out of the fixer, it was, I can't even explain to you. It was like the first time one of my major goals as a wet plate collodion artist came to fruition perfectly. And I just felt like I did it. It was the most fantastic feeling. And then also my friend Kevin Klein, who is a retired gentleman who does wet plate on the side, he came out to assist me that day. And it was just a really good day. So I took a picture of Kevin. I took a picture of the locomotive on the long side, the engine, with him in it acting like the conductor. Kevin's the conductor. And so all these plates are archived. They're on display still at the Cass County Historical Society. It's a set of 12, I believe. And they will be there until they, get tired of looking at them, and then they'll go into their archives. The grant paid for them to have these. Yeah. So there's Kevin. But he's a wet plate artist there. And my childhood friend is a film photographer, actually, the one that played Buster Keaton. Yeah.
It's a wonderful series. I've seen some of the other portraits you did for it. How important was that to get that grant early on?
Oh, I mean, it wasn't a ton of money, but it was validation that the community was supporting what I was doing as a female artist, as somebody doing a form of photography. Nobody in the city does this form of photography, and I felt such tremendous support that whole, I'd say 2020, 2021, from all of the artists and art community. Everybody, I was, this housewife that just took this up, who used to make hats, and I came from nowhere. And I was in so many newspaper articles. I had an art project I did early in the pandemic. I had all the wet plate artists of North Dakota create art images with objects we sent each other while we were under lockdown. It got the front page of the newspaper. And I was not even that good at wet plate at that point. And I was in local magazines. I was on TV for a demonstration I did. I was put in the tourist video that Bonanzaville was featured on for North Dakota. It was such a feeling of warmth and love. And, things have to kind of equalize after that. When you're new on the scene and you have all that love, it kind of equalizes afterwards. But it's I don't get as much attention as I did those first two years maybe, but it really helped me keep going.
Tenant wants to acknowledge our media sponsor, New Magazine. That's N-U-E. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine, and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. And I want to share with you something very exciting. Check out the newly launched New Denver Gallery Guide. Look for the signage that says New Denver Gallery Guide that has a QR code. Scan it with your phone, and you have instant access to a comprehensive digital guide to Denver's finest galleries and exhibitions. Find this QR code in your favorite gallery, hotel, or coffee shop as you visit and explore Denver. Thanks for listening.
I'm Kary Janousek, and you're listening to the Tenant Podcast.
You already touched on this, but there's just not that many people that are doing this anymore. Even though there's been a resurgence, you're actually kind of in a hotbed of a state of people that are doing this, because you're like one of 4 or something like that. And then I read somewhere else that there's something like under 1,000 people that practice this worldwide.
Yes, my mentor has claimed that. I feel, and then maybe he's right. He's got his finger on the pulse. He's very active. So I feel there's probably more. There's a lot of wet plate artists that don't post online and aren't known by other wet plate artists. This process does draw a certain kind of person, but they're very, everybody's different. And there are a lot of introverted people in the creative fields that don't really care. They're doing it for themselves. They're not necessarily posting their stuff. I will say that statement is 100% correct when it comes to regularly active wet plate artists, people who are constantly making content. It probably is around 1,000 to 1,200 people who are making regular content. My state does have more than most states, and we're so sparsely populated for how big of a state it is. Yeah, I think that's in part to the fact that one of the most famous wet plate artists in the world is in Bismarck. So it's like, well, this gentleman is really well known, and it gets an excitement behind the process. It could just be coincidence. Kevin Kline was the first wet plate artist to practice within modern times in the state of North Dakota. He was kind of more that he's a genius of all analog processes, and he's a delight to visit. So if you're going to visit Fargo, you got to go see Kevin. But he doesn't self-promote. He'll occasionally post some things, but he's one of those doesn't self-promote a lot. So he never got real well known, but he has a reputation for sure. People know that he knows he knows how to do it. That's for sure. And he's an artist. He's not just a technician of things. He's an artist for sure. So he was here first, but he's just that's not his thing to garner fame or anything. So, and I respect that. I like a little attention. It helps me feel good. So I'm different, but I try not to over self promote, but I got to pay the bills too. I have to pay. So keep this going.
That's right.
Yeah, we do have a creative group. And then now the young man in South Dakota that's just joined in Waking Wet Plates. And he comes to North Dakota quite a bit.
Do you know Eric Overton from Arizona? Have you seen his work?
Yes.
He does. And he has that documentary that's really good where he takes his kid out to Yosemite.
Oh, I didn't see that, I don't think.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, which is sad. But it's a really good. Let me look it up.
Is it about wet plate?
Yeah.
Is it the one where he tries to take a picture of a horse?
Yep.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah, preserving. I think it's like, I can't remember the name of it. It doesn't matter. I'll cut it.
I saw it when it came out immediately.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought his stuff was really good. And the fact that he's doing it, out in the middle of nowhere, carrying all his stuff, so.
Yes. But he got his own thing going. I don't know him personally very well either, but I did see that movie because anytime that, there's a ripple, any kind of media attention on wet plate artists, we all support each other. So yeah, it was put around in the internet. And I actually think he reached out to me on Instagram. He reached out to a lot of wet plate artists and tried to get them interested in seeing his film because he was excited about it.
Sure.
Yeah, I liked the interview with the Native American man in one of the parts of the film.
Yep.
Were they in like a?
They were in Utah somewhere, but I don't remember where. I think it was Utah. He was at too. And remember that, and then there was the old lady that had the horse. I've actually been at that ranch, and
cool.
She's an interesting. I've never met the lady. I met one of the family members once, but I thought that was a really interesting look at like behind the scenes look of him trying to shoot this woman on a horse. And the horse was like, he's being a horse, right? So not very cooperative, but I thought that was pretty fun.
Now, I'm shocked he didn't get a good image because he really didn't get a great image of that horse. And the reason why I say that is that horse must have been very fidgety. And I understand that. But outdoors, the exposures are fairly quick. I mean, if you have UV surrounding you. So if it's a sunny day, you have to put your f-stop down because it's gonna boom be done.
Right.
Yeah, it was a shame. But he did get some good images, I think.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
they weren't real crispy clear because the horse just wasn't cooperating. That's what stood out to me because I was like, oh, he never did get a good one.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure she loves them, and it shows
Yeah.
life and it shows movement. So I'm not against, like I said, a little movement in an image, especially with an animal.
Yeah.
Although I see some beautiful plates of people with their pets, and I'm like, how did they do this?
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
There's some talented, I don't know if they're pet charmers or what out there running these portrait studios, because I just saw one of a lady and her cat, and cats are such brats sometimes. It's like, how in the world did they get that cat to look so beautiful at the lens almost? I mean, it was congratulations. I don't know who the artist was. I can't remember, but it was
That's
cool.
funny. Yeah, that would be hard. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's only a few movies about wet play, right? There's not many.
Nope. And that's what really piqued my interest back into this alternative process. The first one is when I lived in Denver, and I seen a little segment of a guy that had a studio in San Francisco, and it was like $75, and you go in and you get a little 5x7 tintype. And I thought, wow, that's cool, because digital was just like really starting to roll. And I was like, oh, that's really cool that somebody's actually looking at the old process and just like totally throwing the new stuff out. Just like, you know what, I'm going to go old school. And I thought that was a really cool thing. He's got like a little studio. You walk in, he makes the plate, he comes, shoots it. And then like so many minutes later, he hands you the plate and you're off. I thought that was wonderful.
And those guys, they were the first ones to kind of do the resurgence when the digital boom was happening. But you know who started? I got to plug him too. This was the best manual I ever bought. I don't know, it's going to turn white. It's a binder. So this guy, John Coffer, he does the Wet Plate Jamboree every year in upstate New York, I think it is. And he's the guy who got it rolling in like the late 70s. And maybe you already know this. And this is the book that was recommended to me when I started learning. I'd already read the 2 manuals, which were very helpful in different ways. This was touted to me as the real deal. Like, you need to read that. So I studied this thing from front to cover, highlighting and making notes. And it is very good. And he's so down to earth. I got the DVDs. You have to get the DVDs. You have a computer that still takes them, because you get to see him in action, and it's just great. He's a good guy.
Most of what you do is portraits. Do you photograph other subject matter? Obviously, we looked at the image of the train. Do you do any kind of landscape stuff or still life stuff?
That, to me, I mean, there's always room to try these things. I feel like there are artists out there that do that so beautifully, and I'm not drawn to it. So as of now, because I'm an impulsive person and I get wild hairs, but even with my series of houses, I wanted to have people in them. I just am drawn to that a little more, and that's where I like to be. I've done still life, and I've done a few, but it's hard. It's actually harder for me to figure out what to do with still life, like deliberate still life pictures, than it is to figure out how to pose someone or do an art piece. I don't know why. So I don't gravitate towards it.
You like working with people, then? You like that
I
engagement?
think that's probably it too. I just love being around people. Definitely I used to think I was an introvert, believe it or not. And then pandemic hit, and I'm like, I need people, please. And I love having people in my studio. So now I have a new schedule. I'm there every Friday and every other Saturday. And I allow anybody to come in within reason, to come and visit and say hi and see what I do, especially on my walk-in days once a month. I really like doing that, connecting with the community. Nobody's obligated to get a picture if they don't want it, but it just gives me a chance. So last walk-in I had, here's an example, a gentleman who's a professor at a local college here. I think he's the photography professor. And I've chatted with him off and on. I was in one of his art series he did at a diner, but he came in just to say hi, just to see the studio, just to hang out. And I love that. It's great. And then I also have a new initiative I'm doing for, it's so cold here. We talked about that. And a lot of young students who are trying to create a body of creative work can't afford a studio space. Well, my studio is huge and I love people around. And also I feel like I learn from everyone and get a little something from them. So then it furthers me. It's also mutually beneficial. But especially these college students that are getting trained, I never got that. So I have a policy where, as long as they're respectful of the space, they can bring 1 or 2 models in during my shoot day and work in one of the other corners and hang out.
That's very cool.
I love that attitude, that you can take something away, because there's a lot of people that they don't see that. And I'm a true believer that if you just pay attention, no matter, it can be something completely different, but there's usually some little nugget you can pull away to, integrate into your life or your art practice or whatever. So I love that attitude.
Yeah, just something somebody will say sometimes, or just watching them work. I like to watch other people, like maybe even how their body, where they're at in comparison to the person they're photographing or the thing. It's like, oh, I didn't think about doing that before. And some of it isn't possible with wet plate, but you might be able to do something with it, So I like that. I like to see, I only have one perspective. So I have to have other perspectives, or else things get boring. Sure. Things get real boring.
I think in interacting with people in general, which is one of the things I enjoy doing, is photographing people. But what you just expressed as far as having other people around, like working or coming in visit, the same thing with the actual portrait sitting itself. I always feel like it betters me as a person. I get educated in something I probably didn't know about, or maybe didn't know about. And I get to interact with a person I might never have come in contact with, but I'm better for it after the experience because they've added something, to my life in some way, shape, or form. Do you feel the same way?
Definitely. It's so weird you said that, because I had such a good day yesterday. And one of the people who came in was a local photographer. She's a young lady. And I had never met her in person before. I follow her work online. I love to support other female photographers. Most digital photographers I find that are doing it professionally are women. I think there's just a margin more. I don't know if there's any statistics to prove that, but it seems like in our community, there's more women that do weddings, birthdays, that type of thing. So she's pretty successful, I think. And she came in, she was such a sweetheart, and she was so excited to be a part of the day. And here I find out that the guy I also invited, they went to school together. And so he gave me a heads up, and he said, oh, she's coming in today. I went to school with her. You need to ask, about, or not ask, but he made reference to, oh, she went through something really interesting when she was young. And so I had to figure out what it was. I didn't want to be rude, because these are strangers in effect, but there is something about the photographic process that it's like a hairdresser. They're more vulnerable. They're open more. So I felt comfortable enough to be referring to what he said. I said, oh, the gentleman you went to high school with, he said that you had a really heroic story or something. And she was totally open about it. She had gone through brain tumors at 19. And yeah, it's still an ever-present threat in her life. So she lives one day at a time, but she's a very mentally stable person. If you're living in those circumstances, she seems so put together, and she's got a nice career going at a young age, and she's just a nice young lady, organized, and I'm thinking, if I were thinking that any day I may get another severe health problem, and my life's under threat, not sure I'd be that pulled together. So that was amazing, and I wouldn't have met her otherwise, probably.
And that little bit of interaction really puts things in perspective in your own life, right? Like, hey,
yeah,
this woman is doing this and she's got it together, and yet she has difficulties and obstacles to overcome. I think it brings light to hey, I have some good stuff going in my life.
Yeah,
I should be grateful and thankful, right? Right. Whatever the problem is is not as bad as what other people may be going through. It
Yes.
can always be worse.
No, and I needed that lesson this month. I had, I was so complaining the last few months because I had so many things go wrong. I dropped my brand new camera, cracked the tailboard in half. My silver bath went wacky. I had a couple disaster shoots with people who I consider important to the community. So a lot of things started going downhill last few months. And then we always have like little unfortunate things in our personal lives as well. So it's like all this was happening and I was just complaining. One thing that's helpful though is every time I step into that studio, even if I think the world is burning, it's like, how can I be upset? I love that space so much. So it already helps your frame of mind. And then when you meet people who have these great stories, it checks you.
And we all need to be checked every now and then.
Yeah.
That's for damn sure. Yeah.
Like, okay, now you're fine. Just stop. You don't need to be so upset.
I want to talk about a piece, and I don't expect you to go find it. It's The White Rabbit. It's pretty, I think it's pretty far down. But you can talk about it from memory.
Okay.
It's called The White Rabbit. You'll recognize it because
I know what it is.
Yeah. So talk about that piece a little bit, how that came about.
Well, first of all, with wet plate, there's this little behind the scenes thing that when you learn wet plate, you're falling down the rabbit hole. Everything's upside down, back to front, and it's hard and you get obsessed and everybody's a little bit crazy. So there's already that. But that was the last shoot I had at my old studio space, and this is outdoor of the studio space beside the lovely pine trees, or I think they're pine trees that are by the schoolhouse. And I had connected with this woman. She is Kelsey, a dynamic, self-starting woman who has went through a lot in her life. And I had just found her at a pop-up shop, and she's like, this was meant to be, we're doing a shoot. And so she became my last subject at my old studio. And she happened to have this huge rabbit head that was like handmade, took months to get. An artist made it for her because she was opening a new store called White and Dash, I think it's called.
Dash and White.
High-end retro type of furniture decor store. It was her dream to start the store, and she had gone through a horrible year, so she was very excited. And so she brought her mascot, and it just fit so perfect because the connection with wet plate, and also who has a giant artisan made rabbit head. It was like, how in the world? And so she came and sat for me. We had a really nice time. And this was the old studio, so she had to drive out to Mapleton, which is about 15 minutes out of town. Didn't really know me at all. Yeah, it was a good day. Oh, and there's my old battle axe. That camera you just saw is the one that needs repairs. I use the new one now. I love the old battle axe because it had the red bellows. I still keep in touch with her. Oh, and then later on, so she opened that store. I did a pop-up in her store, which was funny because I didn't really fit the high classness of the store at all. But she liked me and she had me in, and these rich people came in and they sat for me, and it was a great day. Well-off people, I should say. And then she ended up going on TV, some reality show for women business owners or something. So she's a colorful character, that's for sure.
Well, I love that picture, the photograph of the rat, when she's looking straight ahead, the one we're looking at now. I don't know. It's just like, this is just magical. I love this so much.
And then you can see the silver splash there on the one side.
Yep.
It kind of blends into the tree. Like if you go from where the shadows are.
Yep.
So I left the silver splash on that one. She liked that. She liked the splashes.
Yeah.
And she has that plate. She's keeping that. She kept that one.
That is so cool. Yeah. I love this one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great photograph.
It was a great way to end my, that first studio, I cried when I left. I was so sentimental about it. Because that was my social circle during the pandemic of the people that came into that studio. So when I left it was so hard. So that was it was a nice finale. It's like the rabbit of Alice in Wonderland, the last person at the old studio, moving on.
Nice.
following the rabbit.
Yeah, it's a stunning piece. I love that. It's 8x10 tintype, so that would be cool.
How did your previous business experience help you or inform your photography business?
Well, we talked a little bit about this. It was the only way I was familiar with any kind of photographing. And it also helped me realize you could succeed at something super obscure. When you have one success under your belt, it's good to have failures, and I have plenty of those. But when you finally get a really good success that you weren't even expecting, then you start risking a little more because you're like, you know what? Things can happen. You can do really bizarre things or not well-known things or high demand things and still succeed to some extent or to a great extent. So having a business that just worked out magically like that one did and brought so much joy to my life, and I think made me a more interesting person. And I got to meet people around the world. I had girls who would go to these festivals in like Vienna, dressed beautifully in the hats that they would buy for me. And they would send me the photos. I connected with women. I never connected with women as well as I did till I owned that business. And it helped me appreciate how important female friendships were. And I have carried that through with my photography. I mostly shoot women. I like having men in, but I enjoy having female models in. I think that just knowing you have a success at something obscure, that in itself, you're willing to just like jump into the next thing because it's like, well, that worked and it was weird. So it was different. So let's see if this thing will work. I feel like it taught me if you really enjoy something and you really like it, it comes across. And then in a practical side, I was already used to social media promotion. I got familiar with the basic elements of taking pictures, super basic, we're talking. I got familiar with having people model for me. That's another thing. So all those things I think helped contribute to what I do now. You have to promote on social media. So that shop taught me how to do that. You know, you have to be sincere. When you're promoting online, you have to connect with people really. You can't fake that. And that business definitely showed me that. So
what social media platforms do you utilize outside of Instagram? Do you utilize any other platforms to kind of promote your business?
I used to have time to do more different, like these new ones pop up all the time and I'd make new accounts under my name and I'd use them until they lost popularity. I do have a TikTok. I'm not, I'm in the generation where it's a struggle for me to understand TikTok. And I think it's more of a platform for things like humor, and there's a lot of psychological videos and, it's not maybe the best venue for what I do unless somebody's filming me do it. You know what I'm saying? But I do have a TikTok and people are welcome to follow. I try to post my more interesting plates there and like my colored plates and things like that. It's under Old School Collodion. And then I had a Vero account, but I lost interest in that. It's too many. And then I use Facebook. I will give everyone a suggestion. They may already know this. Definitely continue to promote on a artist profile. Keep your personal stuff separate if you want. Have two profiles if you want, but you can't just have a business page because Facebook business pages are getting no traction. You got to have an artist profile that you can promote your work, connect with people in your community and worldwide. That will more likely pop up in their feed than your business page for sure.
That's a good tip. I like that. So talk about the business that you're doing. How do you charge? And so what's the business model that you're using?
So my walk-in days once a month pretty much pay for all my expenses. So they're very important to me. I also enjoy it. As I said, I get to connect with the community. I'm making basic tintypes, no frills. They're vital to keep me employed as an artist. So I do that, and I do commissions. Commissions are higher profit for me. And I don't like to book more than 4 a month just because it's stressful. I honestly like to do 2 a month. because I always leave time for my creative work. And I do get paid for my art shows, my demos, unless I volunteer to do it. Like I volunteer every year for the Historical Society. I volunteer for my art organization, the FMBA, but they will let you charge for sittings while you demo. So yeah, I do it. With being an artist, you can't just make, most of the time, you can't make money just one way. You have to kind of just spider out. And as long as I'm self-sufficient, I'm paying for my studio, I'm paying for my chemicals, I have some extra money, and I can pay my bills and I have a comfortable existence. That's enough for me personally. You know, I don't have to be, I don't know, I've never chased wealth. I don't mind money, but it's like, if you are more ambitious, I'm sure you could make a lot more. You could have more bookings or whatever, but I find I start getting really drained if I have too many. So
what do you charge for commission work?
my website, all I was going to say, my website's actually oldschoolcollodion.com. You did do the URL, that will get you there. I did buy that domain name. So it's oldschoolcollodion.com, and I have online booking there, and I just changed my prices. So I didn't memorize it.
Oh, that's all right.
But I mean, the ambrotypes are always going to be more expensive because they're that hand poured stained glass. And I'll kind of run through what happens. So with a private commission, I guarantee, because of the nature of the process, I guarantee you 2 great images that you'll be happy with. But I take up to 4 or 5. Usually, if it's a 5x7, I'll probably take up to 5. But if it's a 10 type, at least take 4. And you can keep all of them, but I'm only going to do 2 high definition digital scans of the best 2. I'm not doing digital scans. If you want digital scans, because that's a big pain in my butt. So if you want digital scans in addition to the 2 best, you're paying me extra, because I don't like in front of Lightroom removing dust. It's like, especially from an image I don't even like to look at. It's like, no, I don't want to sit here taking dust off. No, thank you. And then you have legal rights to use the images, obviously. I don't do any kind of tomfoolery with that. And yeah, the prices, the 10 types are cheaper. So a lot of people get those. That's my most popular one. But I always recommend the ambrotypes, not because I'm making more. It's because they just are classy. I just love the glass.
Yeah. And is your website up to date as far as pricing?
Yes.
So it's $300 for an 8x10 studio session glass. It's 2.5 hours of your time that they're going to set for you. I think that's really reasonable. I mean,
it is. And a lot of wet plate artists are more expensive than me. But here's what I want to say about that. Like the girl in the cities, there's a young lady in the cities who does, I don't think she does ambrotypes. She just does 10 types. She's quite, she charges what she needs to charge, but she's in a major city. I'm dealing with people in Fargo and surrounding areas. So I don't mind cutting them a break. I'm still making a profit, and yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you that, because that's one thing, I've been a photographer most of my life. Not a active, that's how I make my living, but that's always kind of one of the things. And let me cut to the chase here. Fargo, is that a big enough community for what you're doing? Do you find that as big? Because like you said, if you were in, let's say, in the cities or something like that, you would be busier probably, or be able to have higher commission rates. So talk about living in a small city in the Midwest.
It's enough for me because of my goals as an individual artist. I don't think it would be enough for a lot of people. Maybe, I don't know. But I don't advertise a lot. I mean, I advertise when I want money, and then I get the people to come in. So I think there's enough people. And I often get repeats. So you think once they get one, that's like, oh, okay, whatever. No, usually if they've come to get one, they'll schedule again. So do I think there's enough people? I think I could be busier, like I said. And maybe down the road I will be. But yeah, this year I kind of have a pace I like. And there are other wet plate artists they can visit. They can go to Bismarck. They can go to Minot. I think there's a new girl. I don't know if she'll stick with it. You never know if people are going to stick with it. But there's a young lady. I heard my friend Ryan in Minot is teaching a young lady, and so we may have another lady wet plate artist in Minot, a young mother. So, I'm going to assume she's going to stick with it because I have faith in her. So if she sticks with it, you have other people. You don't spread the love around. I could be busier though. I could be, I guess. I think you make what you put into advertising. Like if I really push, I get people in.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of in the back of my head. Even when I talked about the guy from San Francisco that at the, and this is the early 2000s, he was charging $75 a headshot. And one time, you come in, get the shot. And I thought, boy, that takes a lot of people walking in your door. But he was in San Francisco, so he probably gets a ton. But just kind of curious.
I will say that like the days where I do all the people coming at once, like I do pop-ups and I make a lot of money. So those will get me by for, I'm a pretty good budgeter. So I'd rather have the time to create creative work. And then like, if you have a show at a college, it takes forever to get your money from those, I'm going to call them gigs, those shows, because there's a lot of paperwork, or even in certain other places you show. And it seems like in the art world, it takes forever to get paid. So it is nice to have these pop-up events. It's like a blood flow. You have to,
Right.
And then when the checks come from the galleries or whatnot, then it's like a nice push forward too. So yeah, I probably could be more ambitious with my pricing, and down the road I probably will. It's just, I know with the walk-in days, you're not going to get a picture like you're seeing on my website. You're going to get a basic tintype. You're not getting an art piece, you know? So I like people to have that mindset. Now with the private commissions, even a lot of times they're not exactly like the art pieces I'm making, because that's not the same thing, you know? So I like them to be realistic in what they're expecting in this small community. I will be I got my portable dark room and a tent, a setup for outdoor pop-ups. So I'm going to be doing some festivals this fall.
Nice.
And that'll be my first time doing this. So I'm just kind of pacing myself.
Right. So what's your art pieces go for? What are those selling for?
It really depends on of what the art piece is. I always charge more for the amber types. And if it's a frame that's valuable, like I do some antique frames. So I do it piece by piece. Okay. And if I really love a piece, I'll price it high. It's one of those things, What I find is funny. So I sold some for $4.50 a piece. I'm pretty reasonable. I like the art should be affordable, and I'm churning out content. So yeah, and I'm making money and I'm happy, and that it's out there in the world. It's not stuck in my studio or in the garage in a box. So I'm just happy if they enjoy it. And I hate it when I have to ship them if they're glass, but I have sold quite a few glass pieces and had to ship, and they've arrived okay. So if you're out of state, I will ship. But it's a little nerve-wracking, little scary because there's only one.
Right.
Yeah, scary. So I did that picture of the two girls, and I have another version of it. Now the one with the two girls is going to a gallery that I'm getting paid for, but the one that's the extra one, I probably will put up for sale. I don't have my little shop up and running yet on my website because that's going to be a lot of work. So that will eventually be on my website where you can just purchase original pieces. And I do have linen prints of all my work for sale. They're linen prints of the scans, so they're archivable, and it's quality print that I can oversee the printing, so I can keep an eye on the quality. But I haven't gotten all that up and running yet. I just redid my website.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a process, right?
It is. I'm doing it myself, so that was probably a bad choice. I'm not a guru with that stuff, but yeah, there's so many programs that do make it user friendly.
Right.
I did have a paid digital photographer do my new images representing my studio, so I didn't leave that to myself. So I'm not a digital photographer.
but you're a web designer.
Yeah, right now I am.
I'm just teasing you. You know that.
No,
I'm just
it's true.
teasing you.
I agree 100%. I would give that advice to, like, if somebody told me, should I do my own website? I'd say no, don't. Please.
You sound like
Don't
me.
do your own website.
Never heed my own advice. I gave marriage counseling to somebody and then I didn't heed my own advice. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Wes is not a marriage counselor.
Yeah, we can see what's correct, right?
Right.
It's the doing that's difficult.
That's right. That's right. I'll leave that alone because I'm still married, so I don't want to screw that up any further than I just did.
Maybe she doesn't listen to your show. I know
that
my husband.
Could be.
Yeah, my husband's a musician, and I put in my time. I always say I go to special events only. He doesn't care. It's good. It's good to have space. I can tell him, like, it's good. You can have your band time, but of course he always wants me to go. So I do go to just the special ones.
Do you have like a daily routine that you kind of go through?
Well, daily routine, I have other things I do, but I would say the days I'm in the studio, that kind of routine, you mean?
Yeah.
When I come into the studio, I always like to have some buffer time just to kind of chill and get I don't know, I need a little quiet time before everything starts because I usually have people now I have people in and out all the time. And I like that, but I have to have like a Zen space first, a little quiet time. So I'll go in and open the windows because my space is super hot, even in the winter, because the heating is old and it's boiling up there. So I have to open all the windows, and then I turn on my music. I check all my chemistry. I mix what I need. Like if there's some collodion that needs freshly mixed, then I sort that out. Just kind of my, and I answer emails, putter around. I'll take a whole day just to clean the studio because it takes me 2.5 hours to mop and sweep. So yeah, it depends on the day. I just like my hour and a half before people come. And then when people come, I greet them. I explain the process. I have a little spiel. If it's a model shoot, we go over the inspiration photos. I get their input. And then after the shoot's done, I typically, for a long time, I'd have a little drink afterwards. And then I would clean up because there's always a lot of cleanup, you guys, with this kind of stuff. And that was also my quiet time. So then I get to kind of decompress. You have to wait for your plates to dry. Everything I do is slow. So the plates have to be dry before you transport them. And I clean everything up, wash everything down, put all my studio back in order. And then I'm ready to go home.
Nice. I think I don't think we've ever talked about this, but that little bit of time before you get into it is really important.
Yes.
I equate that to like an athlete that is preparing before a game, kind of getting in the game mindset, right? Like preparing yourself mentally, because you're essentially, kind of on stage. You're almost like an actor in some ways because there's so many things that you have to facilitate. It's not just the technical side and the process of everything. It's also like being on with your subjects and making them feel comfortable and connecting with them. And that takes a lot of like mental energy. It
does. And I'm more comfortable now than I used to be, just from having done it. I do it every week. So a lot of times it's different people. So it does help, but it's still this thing where you don't want to disappoint them. Like you're saying, you want them to have a good time. And it's a slight performance, right? Slight performance. You can't completely be yourself with people you don't know. So, there's a professionalism there, but there's also, you want to be genuine and warm. Oh yeah, all that takes prep time, really. You got to be in the right frame of mind. Also, I will mention one of my routines, and so my studio space is right next door, which is very dangerous, to a European pastry cafe. They serve lunch there too. So I don't eat during shoot days usually because I'm too distracted and I get nervous, like hyper energy. So then by the time the shoot's over, I'm starving. So I will usually leave and go over and treat myself to some snacks. And my studio's big. I'm running it off. And it's not every day that I shoot. So let's put that out there. So I'm not eating pastry every day. And sometimes I just get soup, but that is part of my routine. And if I do know the person coming in, sometimes I'll come before and get coffee for them from the studio. But I'm going to set, so my old studio had a little coffee bar. So I'm at the place now where I can finally do that again. So I'll be setting that up, but I don't have to keep running over.
I like that. I think that's interesting what you said as far as like when you're working. I'm very much the same way. Like I don't want to stop and eat. I don't want to disrupt my flow, and I don't want to feel tired. So if I don't want to eat something and then all of a sudden kind of get zonked on my energy, I'd rather just go to the very end and then gorge myself or whatever because I'm starving, right? But
yeah,
I typically will not stop and eat when I'm working. It's not even a thought in my head. Like I just don't want to do that.
It obstructs the creative process for me. I don't know why. It's distracting. And
Yeah.
I feel you have to stop what you're doing and then go eat. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to stop in the middle, especially with what I do. And it's like my models, I'm wearing the patient's then anyway, a lot of times because it takes so long. So yeah, it disrupts the creative energy, the flow. And also it's kind of celebratory. If you have a good day and then you can just go pig out. I mean, it's, what's better than that? And if you have a bad day, you can just go and have some good food. Oh, it was a crap day. Oh, I'm just going to go and eat whatever I want.
So really it's a reason to pig out, because I would have good days and I'd pig out because I was a huge success. And then bad days I'd be like, I'm pigging out because I suck and I need to pig out. So.
I need comfort. Comfort. It's the only difference is it's going to change what I order probably.
Oh, there you go.
I'm probably not going to eat the vegetable soup if I've had a bad day. I'm gonna have something a little more naughty than that.
So Todd can attest, I can turn all Betty White if I don't eat enough. So
you probably do start your day with a little something.
And then 9:30, I have a little something. Noon, 11:30, I have a little something. 2:30, a little something. But they're little somethings.
Yeah.
Breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, and then too much snacks at night. That's really my problem is I get bored and then I eat.
But it's the same thing though, what you're saying, because it would disrupt your creative flow if you were getting mean.
Right.
So same thing, it's just opposite methods. It's true.
Right. No, I do. I get kind of hangry.
Yeah. No, you don't want that.
That's an understatement.
Feed the beast and keep it happy is my motto.
I know when we're hanging out, I know I can kind of gauge the time. I'm like, all right, I know Wes hasn't eaten since about 9 o'clock this morning or whatever. Like I got to go get him some lunch.
That's right. I've scheduled my life that way because I have a very regimented schedule. I get up at 6:20. I eat breakfast. I go to work. I have a snack at 9:30. I eat lunch at 11:30. I usually have some between 2:30 or 3. Then I go have something, dinner between 5 and 6. And then it's relax time. And I'm, like, hey, the refrigerator's right over there. I'm really bored. I'm going to go grab some nuts. So
you must have a good metabolism with all of that.
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, I used to have a really good metabolism. It's slowed down some, so I need to kind of curb it. But
so you haven't adjusted. Your body has changed, but your mind hasn't adjusted yet.
No, my mind is all about food all the time.
Well, I like
food and other things, but we won't talk about the other things. So on a day that you're sorry, on a day that you're really busy, like creative, let's say your artistic days, right? How many shoots will you do in one day? Like setups
if it's an art day, this is the different world of wet plate. You have one image you're trying to get. It's like, and I may take a similar image 5 times. I don't like to do that. I just did that again recently. That's why I have so many copies of this one with the 2 girls, because you're chasing it. It's never good enough then. And it's like, you got to just be happy with the best one you got. I don't like to take more than maybe 3 shots, unless it's just they're all horrible. But 3 shots of a similar pose, and then choose the best ones, the best method. Else you'll just keep making that same image, looking for something a little better. Tweak.
So you've done 3 images. Let's say, how long has that taken you? Because you got to make you make the collodion before you start. The girls show up, then the shoot starts. When are you done with the first round of how many rounds of setups can you do in a day?
Yeah, I had particular image I was getting yesterday, and we got it done. Surprisingly, it was like right away we got it done. That happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. So then we had 5 other images we did. And that sounds like nothing to you guys that probably shoot some digital, or maybe you do film. I can't remember what you'd said, but it's 5 is a lot. A good day has 6 plates. I typically do 6 plates on a creative day. And then some of those are going to be garbage. I mean, not complete garbage. I don't throw them, but they're not going to be ones I post. I would probably gift them to the models. So, or if I just like them, I'll keep them, or save them to sell later because they're still good. But yeah, it's 6 images is usually what I do. I have done up to 12.
Wow.
I had a day. This was the biggest day I had. Now, I had agreement with the film festival in town. They had asked me to be the hospitality package, part of the hospitality package for these people coming to the film festival from out of state, something fun to do. And they pitched it to them, would you like to do this? That everyone was ecstatic to do this. It was an environmental film festival, and these were really interesting people. These were people who were the movers and the shakers, man, of environmental things, and they lived really interesting lives. So I was excited beyond to meet these people who were not characters, but people in these documentaries. And yeah, it was crazy. So I wanted each image to look pretty creative, even though it was going to be pretty rapid fire. They were coming in all day, but I wanted them to all feel like they got an experience because I wanted to impress them. They were very important people to me. So I didn't succeed with all of them, but we did 19 plates. I had no assistant. My husband was there just kind of entertaining people. No assistant. I like to have an assistant on those days. Somebody who knows the process a little bit can help me out. Yeah, man, that was the most. It was in this heat of summer, and it was hot up there. I have no air conditioner, and I met the most amazing people. We did 19 plates. I would say 12 of them were really, I was happy with 12 of those plates, and they were more than just basic portraits. So yeah, it was a crazy day, but that's very unusual.
Right. So you need to be all Annie Leibovitz on it, and where you have all your assistants running around doing the collodion thing, and you're just standing behind the camera pushing the button.
Oh,
that's what
yeah,
you need.
That would be nice. I've heard of some wet plate artists that have understudies or whatever that do all the hard work.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want that.
Right. Takes the control out.
Well, it takes the control out, but it also takes like the challenge. Why the hell is it going to be fun if the challenge is gone?
Right.
It's part of the fun. Do we have time for me to tell you a funny story?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't do weddings because they don't understand. And weddings, I don't want to disappoint a bride. Come on. Anyway, so this woman is a photographer in the community. She's very good. And she begged me and begged me and begged me to do her wedding. And she's so nice of a person. And I just kept saying, no, I don't do weddings. And she said, there's nobody else. And so I said, well, ask the girl from the cities. If you have the money, she'll come to you. And so I gave her some information. She could not get a hold of any of these people I recommended. And none of the other wet plate artists in North Dakota wanted to do a wedding. None of them would do a wedding. One of the photographers said, and I quote, all the attention will be on me. It won't be on the bride. And I was like, okay. So then I felt bad because here she is 2 months to her wedding. No, a month and a half. Her wedding was going to be a month and a half. And she's still begging me. Still begging. Will not give up. It's like that proverb in the Bible. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where the person keeps knocking and not knock. Is it keep knocking? Yeah. And then finally the neighbor who's tired in the middle of the night gets up and it's like, okay, I'll get you something. So finally, I just felt almost ashamed of myself to not do this. I said, listen, I'm going to do your wedding. We'll post the photos. I'm going to charge you because I have to go on site. And I said, I have to have running water. I'm not doing the thing with the water jugs because it's too nerve wracking at a wedding. I said, I want running water. I want a bathroom I can just turn into a dark room. I want people to get out of my way. I asked for everything. And she was like, yes, everything. I said, I wanted a time frame of when people were coming and I would be ready for them. And there were spaces between so I could, in case I screw up. And she wanted a certain number of plates and I only guaranteed so many of them, but she said, that's fine. So I go out there, I set up, it's a beautiful location in the lakes in Minnesota, and everything is going to plan. Her wedding party comes on time. They look amazing. I'm taking them up against the backdrop of like mountains and trees. And I'm like, these plates are phenomenal. Everything's turning out perfect. And I'm like, what was the big deal? The bride and the groom were 3.5 hours late, I think. They came to get their portraits from me literally a half an hour before they were walking down the aisle. I had no margin for error, none. And they would have no time afterwards. Then she proceeds to tell me, while I'm running around getting my plate and the camera and all this, she's like, oh, you're part of the wedding. You're going to go down the aisle. You're going to stand on stage. You're in the program. She said, you're going to pretend like you take a photo of us during the wedding procession. You don't have to really do it in front of our guests. As just part of, because I'm a photographer and like a big acting thing. And I was like, no, I had no idea she wanted. Thank goodness I wore a dress that day. But because of my vintage fashion, I love vintage fashion. It was a vintage dress, you guys. The armpits, because of all the work I was doing, the armpits, it was silk. The armpits ripped because I'm like moving my arms all the time. I have 2 huge rips. And here I am, nervous wreck. I'm not going to get her bridal images because I needed to take 3 bridal images. And now I've got to go down the aisle with my 10 by 12 camera in front of an audience. And so I wasn't going to have time to like fold up the camera, fold it back up. No, I have to like waddle with this huge camera. So I thought, I'm not even thinking about that right now. I'm getting her bridal images done first. So I went and I realized I was out of 8 by 10s and she's the bride. All I had in the back of my truck were 10 by 12s. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness I had those 10 by 12s. She'll be treated out. She'll get 3 10 by 12. So I go in there, fix them up, do everything, load the plate up, come out. The image gets taken. I'm a nervous wreck, the first image. I go into my darkroom bathroom. And I realize I only have 8 by 10 fixing trays. I have no 10 by 12 fixing trays. And these things need to be fixed. They've been developed. They're rinsing. They're going to need to be fixed. This first one needs to be fixed. I had to take a gigantic trash bag, line the little kitchenette outdoors, their sink, fill it with fixer. I had to mix new fixer to accommodate this gigantic sink so it would cover the plate. And it worked. I brought the plate out and the plates were phenomenal. I did all 3 plates within 30 minutes. And as I'm fixing the last plate, they had already taken off because they had to walk down the aisle. A lady on a golf cart grabs me from that kitchen sink. Get your camera, you got to walk down the aisle. She grabs me with this gigantic camera. I'm going bumpy glands with this huge camera over to this wedding party. Elegant people, all dressed up, beautiful scene, everything perfect. And here I am, ripped armpits, gigantic camera, waddling down the aisle. Like, what am I even doing? Pretending I'm taking a photo. I've never been so horrified in my entire life, but she loved it. She and I did. You don't say no to a bride. I mean,
wow,
that was not going to ruin anything. Yeah, it was crazy. And then I had to stand on stage for them to take a picture of me there. And I'm like, please don't ever show me these photos. I don't want to see these. We were talking earlier. Please don't show me what I look like that day. I'm sure it was like crazy hair, and then stained hands and all these elegant people. And I'm like, blah. it was the worst. So after that, I thought, now I see why I didn't want to do weddings. Yeah, never doing another wedding unless it's my sister or some emergency situation. But no, so no weddings.
Yeah,
That's a fantastic story.
It is. It's one of the better ones we've ever heard. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I'm a tall woman, so you also have to picture in your head, I'm 5'10". So I'm a 5'10" woman looking like a hot mess with that gigantic camera slung over. It was just, so you're not going to miss me. It's so stupid, but it's a good story.
It is a good story. One of the better ones we've heard.
Yeah. That was totally pro. And that's what professional photographers do. You troubleshoot on the fly. And even though you're rattled at the time, you think through it and you make it happen. And that's what you did.
Yeah. And I loved those images. I got so many people that told me that. I don't know if she loved the actual images, which surprised me. But I did. They all turned out phenomenal and everybody looked beautiful in these gowns. It was just like, wow, I can't believe I survived that experience. It was so weird too, because the first part was so peaceful. Everybody was coming on time. The scene was beautiful. Everything was fine. And then I'm waiting and waiting for the bride. And I'm like, oh, what is going wrong? What is happening? It was crazy.
Yeah, brides will make things go crazy quick.
And that's Murphy's Law of photography. If it seems like it's going really smooth, just wait.
Wait for it.
Yep.
And I had no assistant that day either, which I should have had an assistant.
Oh my God.
I hope you charged an arm and a leg too, because you needed to. Man.
I charged good money. I think I made really decent money that day. And yeah, and I kept my word. That was important.
That's right.
That is important.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you another business question. What do you do with your money when you make either a big sale or you shoot a big job, kind of like what we were just talking about, or have a great day of pop-ins or commissions, whatever? What do you do with your money?
Well, my walk-in days, I always set aside to pay for rent, chemistry, plates. That's where that money should always go. It should never go anywhere else. But for like a pop-up or a big commission, it's funny because usually I need something. Plus, as a photographer, you always need something. But it's like, oh, I need a new lens board. I got to get a hold of a carpenter. Oh, I need the most expensive chemical. I need more silver. I need more of this. I need more of that. There's always places for it to go. But you need to set aside money for props and fun stuff. Yeah, it depends on the month. And then also things for yourself. I'm going to pay myself. I'm going to get manicures and get things I want. But first, it's funny. For the longest time, all my extra money, I just sink back into the photography because that's the only thing I cared about. So it's just recently I've started to take money out of what I'm making for fun things for me, besides just paying the bills or whatever and expenses of my life. So that's been a new thing this year, which makes sense because it takes about 3.5 years to do that in any business. But usually I need something. Like I did get a bunch of money and I busted my camera. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, obviously that money is going to go to fixing the camera. So there's always something that comes up that I need. Yeah. And shipments of glass are so, like my black stained glass is so expensive. It just guts me to pay for it. But if you buy in bulk, it's cheaper. So you have to, and you're paying less in shipping. So
who would you say is your biggest support?
My biggest support as an artist or with what I do? Right now, aside from my husband, we're not going to count spouses, right?
Sure, we count spouses because they're part of the journey as well.
Okay, of course, my husband, he's my biggest support. Yeah, the problem with the spouse support is that you feel like they like whatever you do, so you can't trust
You can't
That's her
trust them.
opinion.
Right.
Everything you do is amazing. You should be famous. But sometimes you need to hear that. It's like your mom. If your mom tells you you're the most beautiful person or most intelligent person, it's like, yeah, I need that today. I'm going to believe you today. So definitely John first, and then my friend Guy has been helping me a lot. Throughout different time periods, certain people come to my aid. Kevin has come to my aid several times from Valley City. Of course, early days, the gentleman who taught me helped me tremendously back then. I mean, he would call, like, if I had a problem, I could just call. And, he had years of experience, so he would help me out and he would keep me encouraged, which any good mentor will do. Even if all your babies are ugly, I always call my wet plate, my babies, but it's like, they'll find something nice about it. Oh, you know what? Yeah, you overdeveloped, blah, blah, blah. But the composition, that was something. you need that,
Yeah.
So depends on the time, but always my husband. Yes.
And we're in your studio and I'm sitting for you. What kind of music are we listening to?
I try to gauge the vibe of the person a little bit. So I'm trying to think. I'd probably put on some Led Zeppelin. Maybe that's a wrong call. I do like classic rock for the men. But I have interest across the board. So, I try to gauge by just the way they're dressed, and I pick something that I like on my iPad and put it on the speaker. But I don't know. Is it a wrong guess? What are you into?
I'd be all right with Led Zeppelin. Probably wouldn't be my go-to. Maybe a little bit too. Maybe some Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh, okay. I see. Maybe some
That,
James
that,
Taylor, Gordon Lightfoot.
That'd be more my
no,
thing.
probably not those guys, but
That'd be more my thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I try
Jan-
to gauge. And then also, you're right about things being too hard. If it's not a real zippy shoot where it's like a peppy pop and shoot where there's lots of people, I will try to do, or if I notice the person's nervous, definitely put on my mellow stuff. I really love A.V. Kaplan. I don't know if you know who that is. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. His album was on repeat during the pandemic for me. It was amazing. It's AVIKAPLAN, I think. Phenomenal artist, you guys. He's just fantastic. I don't think there's anyone that would dislike him. So he's a go-to. And I do like that old Hosier album. It's a go-to for me. Everybody likes him too. And then my favorite is Depeche Mode. I have to have me some Dave Gahan, or Gahan, I think is how you pronounce it. I mean, if I'm chilling by myself, that's probably what I'm listening to.
Very good. I like that.
And at the end of the day, if I get to stick around and hang out and have a drink with you, what are we drinking?
Whiskey. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm taking a break. Yeah, I am taking a break, but I normally love to have a whiskey after. It's all I've kept there. So I used to have whiskey and fancy vodkas with like spritzers to mix in my old studio, but I narrowed it down to whiskey.
Wow.
Yeah. Crown Royal is a good go-to.
In the Collodion world, who's your biggest inspiration? Who do you look to? And maybe it's historically. Like, who do you like? Who inspires you?
Who do I like? There's so many I like, and they're not just people in the wet plate field, but in the wet plate field, obviously, everyone has to mention Julia Margaret Cameron. I referenced her before, but as a woman, it's especially important. She was highly criticized by the male society of the time, who we were talking about perfect and not perfect. She was the forerunner of embracing the flawed. And these guys, they were trying to get the perfect photo. So they hated the technical incorrectness of her work, but it survived, and it's what everybody knows of wet plate now. So their work is long gone, and most of them nobody knows anything about. And she's survived the ages. She was a contemporary and hung out with all the artists of the day. I mean, she was inspired by these people, and it reflected in her work. We were talking about Alice in Wonderland. I mean, the Alice Liddell, who was the inspiration behind the story of Alice in Wonderland, sat for Julia Margaret Cameron. I mean, if you read her biography, it's amazing. And she loved philosophy and philosophers. She knew all the poets. I mean, she knew everybody. So she took photos of them, and those are historically important images. Composers. So her images have like a heavy pre-Raphaelite influence. She was a huge fan of that kind of stuff. So, women in long Renaissance gowns and little babies with angel wings and just really beautiful costumey, over the top imagery. And one of the wet plates I reenacted. Remember, I told you when I was learning, I had a second model shoot set up with that artist, and I knew nothing about the history of wet plate photographer, and I had actually picked her image to recreate, and it was called I forget what it was called, you guys. I'm on the spot, but it was an image of King Arthur dead in a boat, and some beautiful ladies in Renaissance wear, like leaning over him. So that was our main image we were getting that day. And it was quite a feat. I had to get a boat. I had to get taken up to Bismarck. Had to get some friends involved to be part of the shoot. But yeah, she's definitely a big inspiration. Even before I knew who she was, I was drawn to her. So, and all wet plate artists will reference her. I'm kind of giving you a cookie cutter answer, but you can't get away from it.
No, that's great. I love it. Yeah, I'll definitely do a deep dive into her work. I love that.
Some other people that are modern collodion artists that are really good. I like Bosque. Patrick Bosque, I think is how you say it. I like, of course, the gentleman who taught me. I like, there's a couple of female photographers, Jennifer Webb Fowler, I think her name is. Yeah, she has a real peaceful vibe about her work. And I mean, I love costumes. I love over the top stuff. So any wet plate artist that does that stuff, I like.
Nice.
That's my sweet spot there. I like that. It's so much work. So much work.
Yeah.
Anything else that you're looking forward to in 2023? I know you mentioned the whole getting an outdoor darkroom and all that. You have anything that you want to promote that's coming up?
So I have an art show in a little gallery called the Red Door Gallery, and it's a gallery that was made out of an antique bank building. It's a really beautiful space. It's in a small community, but it's a lovely area. And they're going to have me as the solo artist there. I'm going to do a live demo. The date for the live demo hasn't been set up yet. It'll be on my social media, but that's in May. So my new series will be debuted in May there. And I'm looking forward to that. And then, I'm going to do the Island Park show in Fargo. I am planning on doing a pop-up there. And that's a beautiful event. It's under trees. There's lots of artworks. It's like an art fair. And there's fantastic food. There's live music, usually bluegrass. So it's a really beautiful environment. And that's one of my goals. I was hopefully going to Deadwood this spring. I've kind of delayed all the planning and fine tuning of that. Eventually I'm getting to Deadwood. I don't have a date yet. I have to get to Deadwood. That's another goal of mine, is I have to get to Deadwood. Who wouldn't want to go there with wet plate? And there's nobody goes there with wet plate. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah. You should go Days of 76 or Wild Bill Days or something like that, where everybody's dressed up in.
Yes. And then a lot of wet plate artists go to Sturgis. I've seen many do Sturgis, but I have zero desire to do that. Let them have that. That's so much chaos. But they have a little music festival where people dress up in Deadwood. So I would love to do that, just because it's music and it's costumes, and who knows who you'll meet. So it's on the books at some point.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'm only an hour away, so shoot me an email. I'll meet you.
Yes, I will. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Come by for another portrait and see how old you look.
Older for sure. I'd love to have a photo taken by you by all means.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to Fargo.
well, and I get up in the Northeast periodically. I'm in the process of trying to sell my dad's house here probably this spring. And in that process, I'll see if you're around and come up to Fargo. It's only an hour and a half away. So,
Yeah, anytime. Every Friday I'm open. So, like I said, Saturday, it's every other Saturday. So you'd almost have to call to make sure it's the right Saturday, but it gives me then the other Saturdays off. Yeah. And I'm puttering around during the week. So, it's always open on Friday. So
that's cool. I like that. But I'll definitely keep you in mind. I'd love to have you shoot me. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be better in studio. Like Deadwood would be those basic portraits because that's all I can do on site. And if it may be a decent photo, it may just have flaws galore. That's the beauty of those pop-ups, but it's still fun. They're still fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
My last question for you before we leave off today is, do you have any kind of mantra or motto that you adhere to or live by?
Yeah, I would say that one of the things I guess it's not a specific phrase, but just keep going. Get through the weeds, keep going. It's going to get, hard times are always going to happen, especially as an artist. You just got to keep going. I don't care if you're dragging your camera behind you. You just keep going through it. Yeah, definitely. If you stop, that's sad. Don't stop.
Excellent. Kary, thank you so very much for spending the time that you did with us today, carving that time out for us and talking about your journey and your process and all the other wonderful things that we've talked about today. It's just been an absolute joy and pleasure to spend time with you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for responding to me when I reached out too. I appreciated that. That was very kind.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Love your work. Excited to see what you got coming up in the future. I'll definitely keep an eye out for you and would love to come and see you. So thank you so much for today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Again, check out Kary's work at her website, oldschoolcollodion.com, and follow her on Instagram at oldschoolcollodion. You can find all this info in this week's episode notes. For the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown. Have a great week.